Hey, give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I am it's always running a little bit late, but it's fine. Okay, so welcome to this week's Mayhem and Madness. So I'm a little bit behind because obviously we've just had the Bondi Beach massacre, which we're going to kind of talk about, but I was wanted to talk about probability and humans actually being oops, let me make sure you can hear me, and humans being nodes, and how the cabal will use predictive analytics to kind of manipulate us. And I'd kind of done it all from a theoretical standpoint, and then obviously the Bondi Beach stuff, and more stuff has kind of been unraveling. So I was just seeing how to kind of weave that in, get Grok to play the overlord to just to see, okay, well, why would you pick this, why would you do this? And I mean, obviously it's the holiday season, it's important. The last time, what did they do on the Jewish New Year is they said, hello, Palestine's a state, right? So they've already been building tensions. But yeah, so just getting Grok to play the evil master. And I recommend you do this with an AI. Obviously feed it a little bit of information. I quite like using Grok in. If you use Grok in X, it behaves differently to Grok outside X, but Grok in X will play more to how you think and see the world. So it can be more, I mean, there's more bias behind it, so you have to be mindful of that, but actually it will get up to speed faster. So we're going to be talking about more senseless murder, and then ... potentially fakery, slipping time, Isabel Okenshott narrative creation again, and this is something that people are 100% missing here in the UK, and then embracing failure to succeed. So we're going to flip things on its head today just to be successful, and I have been kind of away from social media mostly for the weekend for Matt's birthday, so no Christmas port today. It is just tea because I've spent the entire weekend drinking, so no alcohol for me until Christmas Eve, maybe Christmas Day. So first up, if you haven't heard about the Bondi Beach massacre, where have you been? Have you also been taking a weekend off? But so as with all the standard issues, it's a kind of standard black swan stroke false flag events stroke, just how they love to manipulate humans. No, I'm in a long-term relationship. Me and my partner have been together for 24 years. So on yesterday, 14th of December, during Hanukkah festival on Sydney's Bondi Beach, gunmen opened fire on a Jewish gathering, killing at least 15 to 16 people. It is a very long time, including children, and injuring dozens. So Australian authorities have declared it a terror attack linked to Islamist extremism. One shooter, Naveed Akram, is in critical condition, and motives have tied it to rising anti-Semitism amid global tensions. And obviously what we've seen over the last few years is the huge promotion of Islamophobia. You can't speak out against Islam. You can't criticize Islam in the UK until very recently. That would have landed you in court, probably in prison, where there's a giant group of Islamists and jihadists waiting for you to convert you. We've also seen a huge spike in attacks against Jewish population across the globe. And we have to remember that we need to separate the bad people from the good people. So the Pope is an evil Christian Catholic, right? Doesn't mean all Catholics and all Christians are evil. What the very sick and twisted people are doing in Israel, who are saying they're Jewish, is not the entire Jewish population. What the individuals like Khamenei, who are Muslim Iranian dictators, the butcher of Iran, doesn't mean he's like all Muslims are the same, right? So there's lots of very, very bad Muslims who are actually not following the Quran as they should, and therefore very well integrated into the West. So we just have to please be careful. I say it again, I say it every single week. Please be careful. It's not the Jews did it. And if you are kind of perpetuating that, you might want to look at where the money's coming from the influencers who are saying that stuff, i.e. Tucker Carlson, who is getting shitloads of money from Qatar, who fund and push the Muslim Brotherhood, right? So for context, the Muslims aligned with Hitler to rid the world of the Jewish people. Okay, so whether it is an Israel, Australia, MI5, MI6, whoever operation, or whether it is, funded by Iran and China. So there's potentials. It's been, linked to ISIS, Iran, China. China absolutely do want to destabilize the West. The great way to, they have been funding schools and universities like crazy, the same as Qatar have, the same as Israel have. So all of them doing their own little pockets, all vying for control, right? So without speculating on who was responsible, because unless we are in the room, we will not know that, right, at all. And it's better to not guesstimate, because all you're going to do is probably get it wrong for a start, right? So there supposedly have been links to Iran, and China funds Iran, Belt and Road Initiative, Iran bearing it, but also, so this is why it could be Iran and China, because China is wanting to completely destabilize the West. They've said that for a very long time. They're going to do it without, no shots fired. But then we also have Israel, who are trying to do their best to completely obliterate everybody, right? And you threatened to use nukes on Iran, and said that they would kind of preemptively use the nukes, which is why Trump stepped in and blew up Iran's nuclear capabilities, i.e. took nuclear weapons out of Israel's hands, saying, well, you can't use them because now the nuclear threat's gone, right? So there's potentially, or it could be MI5, MI6 and CIA making another play for oil, right, in the region, destabilizing it even more. So there's multiple potential who's, and maybe they're all fucking doing it and neither of them knew the other one was doing it. We also have to be mindful that he, like many others, were already on the watch lists, were already being investigated. So again, Australia, they have a renewed alliance with the UK and the USA. They also have been doing some kind of funny business with China. So they are fucking rabid left at the moment over there. So there's lots of teeny tiny little pockets that are picking a side when we actually don't know, and will never know. Because that's the shit that they will never declassify while we're alive. Something's happened, and it is very unlikely to be an organic event, right? In any way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean these individuals were, kind of went to a back alley and were paid like in a briefcase to carry it out. That may or may not have happened, but chances are these individuals were kind of on the watch list. They were chatting away, and it was an opportunity. So some intelligence agency, which intelligence agency we don't know, will have allowed it to happen. Okay. which is sad because, but we have to remember that, like, they just don't care. They don't care in any way, shape, or form. We are just completely useless eaters. We are taking up resources. They do not want us here. They do not have empathy. They do not think of life in the same way as we think of life. So they've been ramping up, forcing people into little pockets of in groups and out groups of who I'm going to stand with. Everybody was like, I stand with Gaza, I stand with Israel, I stand, like, just fucking stand for humanity against the elite psychopaths. That's where we need to be. So what we've seen is straight away, the Albanese PM. Obviously, the problem is the far right, because the far right had absolutely nothing to do with this, but they are the biggest threat, and need reining in, particularly gun control. Now, I have seen reports of it took 20 minutes for the police to come. The police just stood there without doing anything. Then we have this young this ex-Syrian policeman who tackled one of the shooters. Mainstream media, because of his name, assumed he was, kind of like pushed him everywhere, assuming, he's this Muslim and he's actually a Christian, who probably fled Syria through threat to life from Muslims, right? So they don't treat Christians very nicely in Muslim countries. You either submit, you convert, or you get, stoned, beaten, set on fire. Because you are, by believing not in the Prophet Muhammad, then you are going against God's will, right? And that is blasphemy, and that is like grounds for death. So now they're going to have even stricter gun laws, and I would argue if anybody kind of had a gun, then it would have been over faster. So I think this whole we need to, because the criminals are not the ones who like, they already have really strict gun laws, so that would have happened anyway. Or the reality is the innocent civilians are even less able to look after themselves. And remember, they test things in different pockets of the world, right? They will test to see whether something's going to work. They will try a different variety somewhere else, a different variety somewhere else, and they'll see what works, and then they kind of roll it out everywhere. So now we've got even more division. So I was wrong. Okay, so what have I seen about the event? One of the wives of a dead person was very concerned about the lighting in her debut interview. People behave very strangely after, shock makes you do very strange things. That is strange by lots of standards. Then we have the lawyer, one of the lawyers who was on the beach, who was covered in blood, who took a selfie, also happened to be bandaged, covered in blood during the October 7th attack. So he was very, very unlucky. Potentially. Allegedly. It's very strange. Very strange. And so I would say, very much like when you watch whenever I watch things like Midsummer Murders, or like if I ever see those two guys, if I ever see like him, that's it. I'm like gone. I'm not hanging around. So if you ever see any of these crisis actors, don't hang around. There are videos of people like running away from the beach, but everybody else is just like chilling. And then there's this teeny tiny little stampede, but like on the beach, people are chilling, and like back of the beach, people are chilling. And then all of a sudden there's like, and while these stampede is happening, people are just like, what's going on? And if there were people shooting, you would know, you would hear, you would leave. I assume I would leave. I've not been in that situation. I just okay. So there's the fuckery. There's the usual fuckery, right? But again, it doesn't mean people didn't die. Sometimes they just use it. It doesn't mean people didn't. So false flag and black swan events don't mean people didn't die. It just means that we are not being told everything, and the narrative that's being shaped is not necessarily the reality of what's going on, whether that's death, lived, not dead, not murdered, who's manipulating it for who. Okay, so what I wanted to know, because it was only yesterday, so I'm not going to speculate on. I don't think enough's come out, and I haven't looked into it enough to kind of do a full breakdown, like I have done on some of the others that we've kind of seen. So what I wanted Grok to do was to look at these events from the purpose of Black Swan, if it's a Black Swan event, or if it's a false flag, like what would be the point? And obviously the obvious is, further division, stricter, tighter laws. But because I was speaking to him, again, Grok's always a boy for me, about predictive analytics. So this is actually what I was going to be wanted to talk about this week, was predictive analytics and using humans and testing and getting us and manipulating us into action. And so this was kind of already in the thread. And then I was like, oh, look, here's this event. So I'm going to roll it back, and we're going to go to understanding humans and predictive analytics and why they kind of do these events, when they do these events, what's the point, and what's the kind of certainty that they're going to get the outcomes that they want. So why was I kind of looking? Oh, it's about time we did it again. To be fair, we did it a long time ago. But actually, I was I grabbed my book. So this is called Mathematics for All by R. Wesley, and it was written and released in 1954. So I love the old books, and this isn't that old really. I suppose 75 years. 70 years? So I suppose it is quite old. But I love the older ones because you don't get the same level of bullshit. And so I was checking out the probability bits in here. Then the plan was, kind of jump to Grok and be like, let's talk about people's as no's, let's talk about probability and game theory and stuff like that. So some basic mathematics. So we have to bear in mind that if we have a bag, right? So I'm going to use the book first because he explains it really, really well. Who's dead now, I guess. I would have thought so. I mean, or just really old. I mean, no, I've just lost my page. Why was I looking at probability? Okay, here we go. So this is when we're using AI to predict things. This is what we're doing. We use this. This is what predictive analytics is. This is how they manipulate people to believe something. This is what they're using. They're using advanced probability. So we need to understand basic probability to understand that they're just after little nudges, because there's 8.5 billion people on the earth, right? You can't actively predict what all of them are going to do. So what we mean by probability. So it says here, say we have a bag containing a very large number of balls, half of them black, the other half white. Now we draw one ball out. What's the probability it'll be black or white? Very easy. You'll say there's a 50-50 chance in each case, which is black is a half and probability of white is a half. The probability of a ball of some sort coming out of the bag being 1. So you're guaranteed something out of the bag, which is the probability of 1. And then out of that 1, half of that, it may be 1 or maybe with the other. He talks about a coin. We could ignore the coin. Okay, so this is where it then gets difficulty. So where's he got the number? And this is what probability took me ages to get my head around. Okay, because So the probability of getting another black, or if we call that white first time, another white is not actually like a half. Like if we're putting it back, right? We can't. It's not a half again. We don't go back to nothing. It then becomes a quarter. So 20 drops from 50% to 25%. So why? Because the probability is no longer putting your hand in and potentially getting a black or white. The probability then becomes multiplied by what it was, right? Because now I'm actually asking for the probability of a black, or it could be black, white, or it could be black, white, what black, white, or white, black. So there's 4 different potential outcomes if I'm putting my hand back in. And this is why I've gone to the book rather than Grok, because I was like in an argument with him, and he's wrong. And I know he's wrong because I don't know what he was doing. But this is why I got stuck with probability, because I was like, well, surely it should be 50-50 again. It isn't. It doesn't reset. So basically, irrespective of order, so it's 2 times like a quarter. So the probability of 2 black balls is B times B, or B squared. Probability of 2 white balls is W by times W, which is W squared. So then you have to basically, you just have to get everything out and figure it all out. So then you come up with this thing called the binomial theorem. So it's when it's expressed in its general form, the binomial theorem looks quite formidable, but in essence, it's nothing more than we've already been dealing with. So here it is in the form in which we have met it. It doesn't look anything like what I've done. I had to memorize this shit for my advanced mathematics and statistics exam. So I managed to get my head around it back then. Okay, so that's what the AI algorithms will be using to decide, should we do X, Y, Z? I mean, obviously the AI is not necessarily deciding it, but the people are using that to decide, should we do this? What's the outcome? What's the likely outcome if we do this event versus this event at this time in this place, right? So you have to think about all of the different potential outcomes. And then obviously we already know that they start with the outcome that they want, and then they will plug all this shit into computers to figure out when the best day is, which the best cultural group is to target, who would be the offender, where is it, when is it, why is it, how many, how much harm needs to happen, right? So we have the stand down, or potential stand down order for the police. So why would the police be told to stand down? Well, because they need to guarantee the exact number of people, a minimum threshold of harm will have needed to be hit in order for them to get the outcome that they want. Right, so hopefully you're kind of now understanding why I'm talking about probability rather than going into the actual event. So individually, so real statistical probability, how predictable are we as humans? So individually, 50 to 90% accurately, bearing in mind they have all of this data now with social media. Right, so social media, it just feeds into predictive analytics. And I mentioned that one of the reasons why I use Grok in-app is because in-app he's connected to my Twitter feed. And if you use in-app Grok and you go to anybody's profile and you click the little Grok button at the top, it will tell you about that person. I don't know whether you know this. This is really cool. And it will give you a rundown of who they are. So if you are ever if you're just following anybody and you're like, I don't know who this person is, like, I highly recommend this. Let me just show you and then tell you what it says about me. This is important because this is the information they're using to manipulate us into doing stuff. So I always forget how to do it every time I come back to this. Okay. Let's do it. Always does that. Swap it around. I don't need to be big. Okay, so this is my profile. If I click this grok button, it's going to come up with a profile summary. I'll just have a little bit of tea while it does this. So he is thinking. Here we go. So Katie Woodland, holding an MSc in psychology, 11 years in business, promotes science-based mental health strategies for rapid healing and personal freedom within 28 days. Her content emphasizes practical tools like somatic practices for stress release, cycle tracking for mood optimization, and embracing vulnerability as a path to courage. She hosts live Madness and Mayhem sessions, exploring activism against digital IDs alongside broader societal critiques. Vulnerability equals courage, not weakness. That's because that's my last post, right? So very quickly, you can find out who it is you are getting information from. And I don't know if you saw there, like, I've got I think it's like 64,000 tweets. I've been on X since 2009. Quite prolific. Okay, so even if you only have one social media profile and you've been mildly active, they would be able to understand you. And when you're advertising on social media, one of the things they do is something called a lookalike audience. So say, for example, I could upload my email list of all the people who have opted into things and said, hey, I like what you're putting down. I'm quite interested in this shit. So they're people who've opted in to learning more from me in an intimate setting. Right? Social media is like, you can somebody put a nice tweet and you'll be like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a passive involvement. But if you're going to give somebody your email address, then you are actively inviting somebody into your little technological space, right? So I could download all of my email list and I can upload it into social media. And then what social media and AI algorithms are going to do is they're going to look for people who match the same demographics and psychographics. So very quickly, my email list can be like, when I'm running adverts, I'm going to be running it to people who are more likely to opt in. Right? That's something that you've been able to do on Facebook for like a decade. So none of this stuff is new, by the way. This is stuff that all used to be done by hand, but now they just have like AI and quantum computing AIs to do it. So this is why they can predict what you may do as an individual, 50 to 90% in controlled settings. So this is not with like everybody else thrown in. This is like, if I put Katie in a room with an Apple turnover, they would have 90% obvious chance that I'm just going to eat it. Right? Even if they say don't eat it, I'm probably still going to eat it. Right? I'm just going to fuck it. I'll deal with the consequences later. So 90% accuracy, just me, 50 to 90%. However, it's less than 60% when it's kind of like a more world-based and more meaningful, right? So me in the Apple turnover, yeah, it's like teeny tiny little consequence, right? But me taking action, which maybe puts myself out there, maybe puts my partner in harm's way, maybe draws attention to us, all of these extra unknowns start to reduce the reliability of what they're forcing us to do. So individual versus population limit. So a landmark 2010 science study on human mobility, which tracked 50,000 anonymized phone users, found next location predictability at 93% for individuals. So this is kind of like people's routine is commuters clockwork. And this is why spies will have like 12, 20 different routes, and they will kind of like just there's no rhyme or reason why they take the route they take. I'm not predictable with regards to my routine because I just not. You could not guarantee. I mean, I take the dogs for a walk maybe 95% of the time, but you can't guarantee when my back's going to fuck up and then I'm just not walking the dogs, right? So you couldn't predictably decide on a Tuesday you were going to come and like bug my house because I might be in bed. I might be here. I don't always go on the same route when I walk the dog. Sometimes I go with Matt. Sometimes I go on my own. Sometimes I just like get up and I go, I'm going to go today. I'm going to go now. I might go after work. I might go before work. I might go at 9 o'clock at night. And none of that is because I'm actively trying to fool the system. It's just because I just have a set thing I need to do in a day, and depending on how I feel will depend on when I'm going to do it. I might absolutely allow the way that I feel to dictate when I'm going to do the thing that's important, because I've learned the hard way, sticking to a 9 to 5, I just don't enjoy it. So I don't have to. If, however, you're somebody who has a job or you have to leave the house or you have to be somewhere XYZ time, a routine, it makes your life easy. Now, also, when it comes to mental wellness, if you are struggling with your mental health, the first thing that I get my clients to do is to build routine into their life, because what that does is that reduces the unpredictability and that reduces the anxiety. So because I don't have, I'm not kind of like freaking out about shit and stressing out. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I literally have plans on my walls of what I'm going to do when, and I just completely ignore it and I don't care, and the stuff still gets done. However, if I was really stressed and time pushed, then I probably would plan it out and do it because I know it's important. And most people are very stressed out. Most people have got, if you've got kids, you've got to get to school. Like, they have to go to school at the exact same time. You're probably going to go the exact same route because you know how long it's going to take. You're going to probably come back because now you're desperate for the loo. Like, all of those things make it so simplicity. Like, we do like things to be simple, very much like the raindrops on the windows is the path of least resistance, right? If you've got to get your kids from A to B, if you've got to go from A to B, if you've got to do XYZ, then you're going to be really easily predictable. So they were 93% predictable with regards to routine and commuting. But then, even when they just aggregated it to a city population level, it dropped to 70 to 80%. So from one-on-one individualistic, it was 93%, because there's people like me on the 7% out on the outside go, fuck it, we just do this today, or I'm not going to leave the house at all today. But once you kind of throw multiple people in, then it drops to around 70 to 80%. And that's just work commute. That is just something that these individuals are doing every single day. That's one single thing, rather than we're going to extrapolate to all the other random stuff that's going on. And then if you are then trying to scale it to 8.5 billion, like, it's not going to work very much at all. Okay, so we have like all the different things that we have, like, gender plays a part, age plays a part, cultural norms play a part, weather plays a part. I mean, weather plays a big fucking part in England. Not for me. I will walk the dogs even if it's like absolutely pelting it down, but we have things such as we call them fair weather walkers, right? Lots of people will not take their dogs unless it's warm, unless it's not raining. So they would be very predictable. If you wanted to, kind of just pay for a bit of rain. So something, with regards to predictive analytics, if it's raining on general election day, there's a lower Labour turnout, right? Again, so they do. Oh, why is I didn't. My fucking computer opens shit when I'm not opening it, and now I can't even see my screen. And I don't even know how to close this thing. It's literally covering up my screen. How do I go away? I don't know what it is. Oh, fuck's sake. There we go. Literally just opens up and covers the entire stuff. My apologies. So they know if it's raining, Labour won't turn out, right? Okay. Traditional Labour. So once we start to introduce all those things, it drops by another 20 to 50%, right? So now we've only got predictability of about 20 to 30% in total, from 93% on just like kind of going from A to B, all the way down to 20 to 30, 20 to 40% when we start throwing other shit in, which makes it really, really unhelpful. So human behavior is multidimensional, influenced by a minimum of 100 different factors. So even rare events will only shift probability by 5 to 20%, right? So these black swan versus false flag events will only shift 5 to 20%. Right. So this they put a lot of effort into something which maybe get completely ignored. And this is why we see the same thing. It happens and 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 it happens again. Right. At some point they think people are just they're gonna hit that threshold where they're gonna like kick off. So if you think about all the kind of Rona narrative, the kind of Rona was dying down 21, 22 because people were just bored of it by this point, right? We only have like limited capacity to give a shit, which is what they rely on with the recycled crap all the time. But outside of that, what we saw measles, the monkeypox, we saw disease X, we saw Ebola, we saw another like SARS type virus. Now we've got flu. So what they did, like every kind of 6 weeks, there was like, oh my God, there's this, like, we're all going to die from this new pandemic. But they just weren't getting the traction. So they tried again with a different one, tried again with a different one. TB, tried again with a different one. So they keep trying to nudge the narrative, and what will happen is they'll release this thing but it doesn't stick, so it just disappears, right? Again, so we've only got really short memories, I mean, a short capacity to actually give a shit, right? So with regards to social sciences and elections, so polls and models for voter turnout or election wins hover at around 70 to 85%. But margins of error 3 to 5 explode under volatility. So obviously we had the media was lying with Clinton 71 to 99%, and she lost. That's so obviously Grok hasn't taken into account there that was actually media made bullshit, designed to demobilize and demotivate anybody voting for Trump. Like, there's no point to vote for him because he's lost. He's not going to win. So everybody was kind of speculating she's never going to lose. They did the same sort of thing in Brexit for us. The Remains like 90%. Nobody wants it, and actually they fucked up by not stuffing enough postal votes, and they lost the Brexit vote. And then obviously David Cameron he had to step down because he's the one who ended up doing it. But not before he put in the signed us into the Sustainable Development Goals. So a 2023 study of 400 plus social scientists forecasting societal change hit just 61% accuracy. A bit better than chance, but not useful enough for kind of putting policies behind it. So this was what I found interesting though. One tweet storm can flip 5 to 10% of undecideds, right? So obviously they got rid of Trump from Twitter in January 6th. Right. So anybody who was kind of like shocked and on the fence and couldn't believe it, could have been swayed. And then the snowball could have happened, and that would have completely destroyed the January 6th narrative. So that's why they shut everybody down. If you mentioned the fact that Trump, wasn't it weird that Trump was winning 2020 polls, and then overnight, it's like I was watching it all, and I was like, oh, fuck this. They've kind of paused now. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up in the morning, and then, Trump's not elected, right? And if you mentioned that, then you were removed from the internet. So this is why they do suppression, because 5 to 10% of undecideds can be flipped, and if they can be flipped, then they can influence others. So it's not just about the immediate percentage who's influenced, it's about the ripple effect. markets and economics. So financial predictive models such as stock, they do really well with short-term probability, 60 to 70% for daily moves, but long-term is about 50% accuracy. And it says due to behavioral economic quirks, but I would suggest it's due to organized disruption and fast money making by the elites, right? So the predictability is not there because it's being manipulated rather than the predictive model falls flat. So lower probability, high impact events. So these are the events. So black swan versus and or false flag events. So human response is less than 40% predictable. So 2024 Nature review on crisis. So funnily enough, pandemics and wars. Funnily enough, 2024 Nature were kind of looking into the effectiveness of predicting human outcomes on pandemics and wars, right? What are they pushing at the moment? World War III. They are refusing to settle in Ukraine. They are pushing that we're going to continue. We're going to beat Russia, even though we've been fighting a proxy war for fuck knows how long, and we are getting absolutely creamed. And there's nobody in the United Kingdom who's going to fight for fucking Keir Starmer and their proxy war, and even if it becomes a full world war, because they've caused it. Right, the liberals are the only people who are behind them, and they aren't the people who fight. Right, it's people like you and I who are awake to the con and going, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not fighting Russia. Russia's currently fighting all the Nazis, so no, I'm with Russia on that point. Thanks. So. And people in Donbass and Crimea voted to be part of Russia. So I don't understand why they're not allowed, right? So well done, Trump, for saying they need an election. So, excuse me. They're just like, vote again for the same thing they've already fucking voted for. But maybe it'll be on the world stage this time. So what they showed was panic buying and compliance drops by 30 to 50% as people deviate from rational probability due to fear. But again, they can push the narrative. So if you think about in COVID, the toilet roll panic buying was the most retarded thing I've ever seen. Like, even as I saw the media pushing it, I genuinely couldn't believe people then started to follow suit because it didn't give you diarrhea. Like, why would anybody? And there was people who were buying like 90 toilet rolls every goddamn minute from eBay and ending up with rooms full of toilet roll. Like just logical thinking, right? Your brain shuts off logical thinking. And me and Matt didn't panic buy. And then my dad had to come from Wales to give us some toilet rolls because there literally wasn't any in Telford. So people in Telford fell for the dumb fuckery. Like, I genuinely couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to bother panic buying because it's just stupid. People have obviously got to think, no, well, there's no diarrhea. You're not having like snot factories. Like, it was shortness of breath, right? COVID, shortness of breath, like funny taste buds. None of the symptoms were about where you may need an excessive amount of toilet rolls in your home. But models for social behavior such as Twitter top out at 60 to 75% accuracy. So it's useful for hedging, right? So 60% of chance of unrest but it won't be an absolute. Doesn't mean they're not going to use it. So these are breakdowns of when I was looking into CIA MI6 specifically, right? So because I was like, well, the intelligence agencies use them. How are they using them? Why are they using them? What documented evidence do we have that they're using them? So they absolutely do use predictive analytics, but with regards to influence amplification rather than God mode prediction. So declassified documents show it's about pattern spotting and big data to nudge narratives, not oracle level foresight. And in the COVID Rona pandemic, we had Sage who were using behavioral analytics in order to nudge the population, right? They literally called it the nudge unit. So again, this isn't new, and they've been doing this for decades. It's just easier and faster. And they have our data to see whether it's working. So it's real. They have real-time updates with regards to what they need to know, which is why they'll be like, oh, and we randomly found this bit of information. Oh, and we found this bit of information, and a bit of information that doesn't land disappears, and they find a new bit of information, right? So this is why anything that randomly drips shit out, that's when you need to start going, that's like, surely you knew that already. Okay, so they treat humans as probabilistic nodes using AI to forecast reactions and tweak info flow. Public information, mostly from the USA, because MI6 is a little bit tight-lipped, comes from D-class leaks and oversight reports. Okay, so core tools and techniques from CIA is something called Kinetic Predictive Analytic Technique, which is KPAT, which was declassified in 2022. This is their go-to for combating surprise. It scans historical intelligence, success and failures to model threat probabilities. For example, 80% chance an adversary escalates if we leak the Russia dossier, or we leak the January 6th HBO documentary stuff that we made up and make it look like this is really going on. If we leak some of the Epstein images and we black out, don't know whether you've seen, they black out the images of the Miss World kind of images. So they will have been using predictive analytics. I mean, really shit predictive analytics. Or I don't. I mean, because you can use like free AI nowadays, right? You don't even need to be invested in like having this shit like in your little quantum computer basement. You can just jump on your mobile phone and ask, if I release this, is it going to be good or bad, or am I going to look like a complete twat for doing it? Anyway, and or for countering disinformation. So this is where Snoops, and this is where the disinformation units came from. So the BBC has BBC Verify, which never manages to verify any of the shit that they put out. But there we go. So around 70% accuracy, and they are specifically looking for social media virality. So they are trying to figure out what may go viral on social media that will overtake the people who actually have figured out what's going on to completely kibosh the narrative. And again, this comes back round to Bondi Beach. Those three potential different funders, MI6, CIA, Israel, and maybe Australia working together, or Iran and China, right? So we just kind of localize it to those potential three different ones working together, like independently, right? So they will have all been kind of playing. Do I need to do this now? But it's all about division anyway. So, okay, so the other thing they've got is Gen AI integration. So by 2024, CIA and MI6 rolled out generative AI. So that's what ChatGPT, X, all of those things are. Ideation to help analytics connect dots. CIA is using it to simulate narrative spreads. For example, if we push story Y on platform Z, there will be a 65% uptake in target demo, right? So this is where they pay the influencers. I remember we did that show on, Israel paying about £1,000 for a video. Our own government in the United Kingdom was paying tens of £1,000s to influencers for them to get jabbed. We've got jab for the flu being being pushed right now. We've got the crisis actor, whatever she's called. In Liverpool, she was like slightly larger with brown hair. Then on her way, I mean, she lost like 2 stone on the way from Liverpool to Nottingham to have another photo op of having a flu vaccine, and also at the same time aged about 15 years and had her hair dyed. So, you know, I definitely would not be taking that same route, right? Yes, her hair looked good, but and yes, she'd lost weight, but she aged about 15 years. So we see crisis actors being used, right? So obviously they will have done their homework with regards to this is how important it is. So it's in marketing and sales world, it's A/B testing. So if I'm putting a headline up, if I'm selling something, I will put like I will do a sales page, and then I do like one headline, and that will be like sales page A, and then I do sales page B with a slightly different headline, and I will run money to both of them. Whichever one wins, I will keep, and then I will tweak something slightly differently. Maybe I will tweak the colors on the page, and then I will run money to it, and I'll see which one does best. And so that's what you do. You progressively A/B test until you get like, I don't know, 30-40% conversion rate, and then you can just kind of fucking leave it. And then your conversion rate goes down, and then you will maybe tweak things, maybe go to a different audience, whatever's going on, right? So that's what they were doing with regards to this crisis actor. They will have been A/B testing probably before this point, and they've figured out in Liverpool what increases compliance is somebody who has got dark hair, looks younger, looks more like a stereotypical single mum. So, you know, potential to, you know, fake tan, that type of beauty style, Essex, kind of like Essex and Liverpool stylized individual. That's what works. But they also figured out that doesn't work in Nottingham. What works in Nottingham is perhaps somebody who looks a little bit more educated, who has got she looks very pale in this one. She looks more educated. She looks more, I would say, middle class compared to working class. So this one individual, they did 2 completely different makeovers, right? So they are utilizing what they know about what works on individuals, and then ensuring, and this is why you will see headlines completely different, and in the UK it is hilarious, because we are so small. So you could drive from John O'Groats to Land's End, and you could stop every 30 miles in all the different supermarkets, and you would see a different fucking headline, right? Because they know the demographics of the area, what's going to move the needle, because they've been doing like this shit for a long time. So now they don't have to go through the rigmarole of testing it and wasting money and wasting time. They can just feed it into the generative AI using psychographics and demographics, and based on what's previously worked. So you just upload the shit that's worked before, and then you say, help me create a fake person. You can then, if you're using, you know, Gemini or Sora or any of the other image and video creations, help me create the ideal person that's going to have XYZ result based on these demographics and psychographics, right? Within half an hour, you could have an entire fucking ad campaign that is actually going to sway the masses in that teeny tiny little localized area. It's that quick nowadays. Okay, so MI6's Sir Richard Moore confirmed the AI for threat forecasting, including psyops tailoring, right? Literally using AI to create psychological warfare narratives and testing it. So they hit 60 to 75% success rate for short-term influence, however less than 50% for long-term cultural shifts, and that's just because social media moves too quickly. People's We are too busy to stay on the same thought thread. And I really don't know why I made a cup of hot tea because it was guaranteed to go cold by the time I actually drank it. Okay, so so that's what they're using right now. Historical declassified precedents for the narrative influence. Obviously, we had Operation Mockingbird, CIA, 1950s, 1970s, which is still in play. Declassified 1977. CIA recruited journalists to shape US global narratives, and this is why every time somebody's abroad and they're a journalist, I'm like, oh, journalist. And every time the BBC and other mainstream media rock up to events where they're not usually, everybody should be on high alert. You know, if examples, we have Trump getting attempted assassination in Pittsburgh. My brain stopped working. They never went to his rallies. They turned up. Oh, look at that. They turned up for the J6 event. They never. Oh, look at that. They they went to document it and tell the story, right? Because and you know, the journalists, the MI6 spies, CIA, like they still are, because why would journalists still be spies, right? Why are they useful? Because they get the press passes. They can go to places that other people can't. Other great spies tend to be cleaners. They're the people you overlook, the cleaners, the florists, the maids. And quite often it is more women than men in those type areas, because they get routinely ignored compared to men, right? They are the wives. They are, you know, we have Erica Kirk, right, who was fucking trafficking children, and trafficking women and girls and children in wherever she was with her, not charity, what's it called? I can't remember. But yeah, with her NGO, right? Non-governmental organization. Maybe it was Charity Angels Charity or whatever it was called. You know, we have Candice Owens, who is a member of the CAA, same as Andrea Cortez. What was it? Acacio Cortez. I just don't care enough about these people to know what their names are. Who is a member of the CAA, which is the you know, Actors Guild, which, you know, helped get Bill Clinton elected, which is what you hear Trump say all the time. Oh, CIA, central casting. You know, it's not necessarily because they're actors, but they are all members of this Actors Guild, which means they're all towing a fucking line, which means they are doing as they're told, which means Candice Owens, who is saying the Jews did it, are saying the Jews did it with the which she is allowed to say it by the CAA. So it's pushing a narrative on purpose, right? So we have to be really fucking careful about listening to people. And this is why I don't care whether you believe me or don't believe me. This is why I'm trying to teach you stuff rather than say this was fake, right? This is what they're doing, and you need to figure out how you can use this to help you understand what's going on. Okay, so we have so early stats on media reach. So it's about 70% belief shift post article. So that's when they first started doing Mockingbird stuff. There was like, people believed the mainstream media, and they would put articles out, and 70% belief shift, right? Which is fucking huge. That 70% of the nation would change their minds on something. But then we can see that from COVID. Look how effective people were brainwashed by all of the media, and the government's all fucking singing from the same hymn sheet, even though when they looked at the mirror there was nobody dropping dead, right? They literally, their own eyes and their own mind told them a completely different story. We now have, in case you haven't heard recently, the FDA is now putting a black box label on the COVID jabs, right? So which is like the worst, most dangerous thing, and now they're investigating the vaccine deaths. Now the Telegraph has come out with, oh, this is really strange. We've all of a sudden we've realized that it's linked to myocarditis. Accept the fact that that information was there in phase 1 and phase 2 trials back in 2020. And when we were saying shit like this, we were told stupid, tinfoil hat wearing, shut up, sit down, you don't know anything, stop reading Facebook. Oh, wait a minute, let's just delete you from the internet, right? So we need to hold these fucking media institutions to account because they fucking have blood on their hands, because they have a 70% belief shift. Right, there's a reason why in the United Kingdom they had fucking D notices posted on them, which means that if they mentioned, so this information was in the mainstream media, so they were talking about it, these journalists were talking about it, they knew about it, which is why people like Bob Moran, who I don't actually agree with on lots of stuff, but why people like Bob Moran were doing these kind of little graphics and then they were pushed aside, right? But I don't agree with the fact that he told people not to vote, because that is like fucking idiotic. Because Labour got in with 33% of the vote and the like tiniest fucking turnout like ever. So even if you voted for like fucking monster raving loony party, we maybe could have done something different. Anyway, so the journalists knew, but they towed the narrative, right? They picked their freedom over people's lives. If all of them had turned around and just fucking done it anyway, like the public would not have let them go to prison. The public would have gone, why are they going to prison for doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is holding governments and shit to account? Okay. So post 9/11, they used data analytics to forecast public reaction to things like Iraqi WMD claims, 55 to 60% compliance. However, backlash hit 40% due to under-modeled distrust, right? So in the UK, we had 3 million people marched anti-war. Right, and there was very famous people and well-respected people saying this just isn't true. So if you have somebody standing up, then you can just completely ruin it, which is why it was really important with the COVID. People like Pierre Corey, people who are traditionally very well respected in the medical world, were shut up. Right? Because they went from potential 55, 65, 70% belief shift right down to 40%, because the Iraq war and WMDs is people were just saying, but that's not true. So they lost 50% of the potential belief shift by the counter narrative being able to bring facts. So how do you counter that? Is you push up the emotional fear, because then your facts don't matter, because people are terrified. So you increase the fear, you silence the dissenters, and then you can get the shift that you need. So MI6's info operations, which are less declassified, but in 2023 leaks. Hey Pen, leaks showed GCHQ, which is the technology arm of MI6, in case you didn't know, used predictive analytic tools for active measures, such as modeling Russian disinfo spread, right? Nobody cares about China fucking hacking, but we care about Russia disinfo. Nobody cares about the 20 MPs, frontbenchers and ministers who were embroiled in a spy ring only maybe 2 weeks ago. But the Reform MP who took a bribe from Russia has got 10 years in prison. So you see how that fucking two-tier shit works? So they counter it with their own disinformation. So we have, what are they called? And they were very effective in COVID, 77th Brigade. So the 77th Brigade is part of the 6th Division, which is the Army's PSYOP, digital PSYOP unit, and when they launched it, they only wanted like 400-500 people, and within 6 months they actually had 2,500. And each member of 77th Brigade has at least 10 profiles. So each 2,500 person has 10 online presences. Right, very quickly. And then obviously they employ bot farms and all of those things. And that's one of the things that Elon did with X, was just like, you need to get rid of the bot farms. And you know, the AI algorithm is trained to identify when there is unexpected amplification, which would then indicate it's being bot pushed. Right. So for everybody kind of like piling in on Elon, the stuff that he's doing on X to try and ensure that false narratives are not being pushed, which enables real life people who are perhaps fighting through the bullshit to get pushed. And just because he's advocating freedom of speech, it doesn't mean that, one, you can say horrific stuff, because like there's still laws, right? Chanting for somebody to die is not something that is lawful, so within the bounds of the law, and you have a right to say it, but you like, it doesn't mean everybody needs to see it either as well, right? But so Ukraine information 2022-2025, they shared real-time, this is in MI6, predictive intelligence publicly to shape narratives. So 80% chance Russian advance would stall if aided by if XYZ turns up. And then this helped to boost the ally resolve by 20 to 30%. So MI6 was purposely putting information out on social media, bullshit information. And then do you remember, like, every time Ministry of Defense was saying, oh, this is how well we've been against, like, you know, we've done this against Russia, we've taken Kiev and all of those things. It was specifically targeted for the people on the ground to make them think they were winning when they really fucking weren't, which is why it was so drastically different. Then we have big data and psychological operations. So CIA contracts in organizations such as Plantier and In-Q-Tel fund AI for social network analysis. So predicting influence cascades, for example, Keynote A sways 15% of network if fed narrative B. Okay, so if I tell the Christians the Jews did it, they're going to fall in line. If we tell the Muslims the Jews orchestrated it, they're going to fall in line. If we tell the Jews the Muslims did it, they're going to fall in line, right? If we tell the lefties the Jews did it, they're going to fall in line. If we tell the conservatives the Jews did it, they're going to fall in line. They've got 15% of network sway just by knowing. And people put it on internet all the time, right? So it's not like they aren't going to know what they need to push, what they need to fund, who they need to push and who they need to fund to get the results that they want. So if we roll it back to 2011, when Tommy Robinson was, head of the ADL or EDL, English Defence League, EDL, they were being fed intelligence from Israel, from Mossad, right? They would get information under the door with intelligence leaks, which would enable them to go to XYZ place to do XYZ and cause a ruckus, right? When Tommy Robinson rocked up to Telford do the grooming gang bullshit, he was doing it at the exact time that other shit was happening that was designed to try and push people in Telford into fucking fights and stuff. And he was doing it in specific places that... So an example. There's a place in Wellington called Regent Street. Regent Street is an entire street of Pakistanis, pretty much. And so as a white person going down there is probably not the best idea. So to detour and take car-based caravans down that way, and then be shocked when they were getting fucking windows smashed in, and then the police turn up, right? So there's specific things, and he wouldn't know that not coming from Telford. Right, so it was orchestrated because he met at the train station in Telford, and you don't accidentally end up in Wellington, right? Think that doesn't happen. And I only know about that because one of my therapy clients at the time, I said to him the day before, "Don't go." Like we'd had therapy like the day before. I was like, "Just don't go. Tell your mates not to go. It's all a fucking setup." And he was like, we used to have like 90 minutes of therapy and then like 90 minutes of like, "Oh my God, have you seen what's going on?" So it was interesting. And he came back the next week and be like, "Oh yeah, my mate's car got smashed in." And I was like, "Well, what happened?" He was like, "Well, they were at the train station, but then they went to Wellington and they went like down Regent Street." And I was like, "Well, did nobody from Telford be like, let's not do this? This is just fucking retarded." So he would have had intelligence in Telford. So somebody in Telford was doing that on purpose. And I've mentioned that when I went to the Bristol, the very first anti-COVID lockdown mask, whatever it was, protest was in London on the Saturday. On the Sunday, it was in Bristol, right? So they were the very first two that we had in August 2020. I didn't go to the London one because I wasn't stupid. I went to the Bristol one, and I literally watched in real time how they were trying to divert us down the streets that we weren't supposed to go down, in order to force the police to react. And what they were wanting to do was to get the police to get the batons out, right? And I know you might be thinking, "Oh my God, well, it's like obviously you should be allowed to go wherever you want." No, you have when you are going to a protest, you have to get it authorized in advance where you're going to go, so that the police can block off the roads if they need to. You have to apply for permits. The police were there with vans. I mean, they were like amicable. Like the police they were just chilling. We were just chilling. We were allowed to do our thing. But when they started to go down, the breakaway group who tried to push down, and the rest of the individuals who were all like me and be like, "Why are you doing that? Like, this is where we're supposed to be going. Like, we're here to raise awareness. We're not here to start a fucking fight." So they will have predicted in advance, if we can get XYZ number of people to go this way, we can then do this, we can force the narrative. And obviously the point of what the government were trying to do at that time was to shut the protest down, right? Which they ended up doing later on. And then they had to put it back up. But this is why you get the eco-terrorists, the eco-warriors, Palestine Action, all of the left are far easier swayed and brainwashed and kind of nudged into extremes, which enables them to push new laws, right? Then the typical right, because the typical right tend to be the people who've got their brain switched on and like, "But I'm a law-abiding citizen," right? I'm standing up against this draconian law because it's not a law, it's just guidance. Because we paid attention to the rules. But yeah, so they do know this in advance. So 2023 ODNI report pegs accuracy at 65% for terror recruitment forecasts used to preempt radicalization stories for swaying. So think Cambridge Analytica 2016 mirrored their kind of playbook, modeling predicting voter swings with 70% hit rate via micro-targeted psychological narratives. So teeny tiny little, if you can sway somebody 70%, but it's not individual thing, right? So so it's, we go back to me saying I could just upload my email list, and then I could push a narrative to all of those people and I can nudge them 70%. So if I want to, and all of those people who keep signing up to those change.org or Big Brother Watches petition, or the Free Speech Union are doing petition on their own website, all of these organizations who are doing their own petitions on their own website, you download the information. Like, how do I manipulate this group? Right. The only petition anybody in the UK should sign is the government one. And then obviously the government can fucking download it and do their own predictive analytics. But you are not handing your data over to, I should say, bad actors. The government will have to, they would get in lots of trouble if that's what they're doing, because they will be bound by data protection and GDPR, and they do not have a warrant for your petition data. But you will be signing the terms and conditions, right? What are the terms and conditions of those petitions that you've been signing? What a change. Change is just fucking, isn't that George Soros's fucking site? But, oh my gosh. People are so stupid. Anyway, so they reckon 60 to 70% for influence operations, because free will fuck shit up. So the healthier and happier you are, the more free will you have, the more you can fuck their plans up, right? Multi-pronged approach for me teaching you how to be happy and healthy. It is the only way we win, like, genuinely. Let's just delete that random thing. Okay, so it is, however, biased towards Western views, which is why I would argue the homegrown terrorists are more radical, or because they will be indoctrinated into Western society, easier to manipulate, and more so easier to manipulate because they feel isolated. They don't feel connected to their homeland because they didn't choose to come here. They don't feel connected to Western society because they've been alienated by their parents and their grandparents, who now live in siloed little areas, right? Okay. So that's the kind of basics of predictive analytics. So they can be up to 70% accurate if they are modeling correctly. So the more information you put on social media, the easier you are to manipulate. So be careful. What do I put on social media? I put stuff on social media that's important to, if I didn't have a business, and obviously the world wasn't trying to implode, I wouldn't be on social media. I don't find it enjoyable. That's why I post and run, as they say. Don't post and run. That's all I fucking do. I will kind of scroll. The only reasons I scroll on social media is to find out what's going on, so that I can kind of report back to you guys and we can break the cycle. But outside of that, I just don't care enough. Like, I don't. But lots of people will put, what they're having for dinner, home arguments. They will put their lives on social media with regards to what they did today, what they're doing tomorrow, their holiday plans, what book they're reading, what music they're listening to, what TV shows they're watching. All of their entire lives are on social media. They're telling the world everything about them, which means they're easily manipulatable. Okay, so now we're going to quickly go back to Bondi Beach, right? So that was kind of this kind of, I wanted to kind of go into predictive analytics with you anyway. So, and then this event happened. So what I did is I got a grok, and this is the way that you should be now you kind of understand how easy it is to manipulate you. Based on psychographics, demographics, the things that you put on social media, the fact that people are getting paid to manipulate. They will target you without you fucking realizing. if you see an event, right, the first thing you should do is not necessarily react, not like I stand with, right? Go to an AI and be like, okay, so hypothetically, if you were, and this is what I get Grok to do. So this is what I put. Right, okay, literally put. So thinking about the very recent Bondi Beach attack, hypothetically, if it was a black swan or false flag event, what would be the likely narrative? What would the predictions be? And then we do that. And then I kind of souped it up. But if you were an evil overlord, hell bent on ruling the world, what would you hope to achieve from the Bondi Beach massacre and why? Right. So you can do it in kind of like 2 phases, or you can do it all in one go. So just predictive analytics first. Black swan event, unseen storm. So freak convergence, because we had the rising global anti-Semitism, radicalization, Australia's safe haven. So Australia's been like welcoming. So do you remember Australia did really, really well at stopping illegal immigrants because they started fucking shooting the boats and they had like 90% drop and nobody wanted to go. And then they got lefties in and they like kind of welcomed them with open arms, right? And so they've been like fucking pouring into Australia, as they have been pouring into Europe and America before Trump was back in office. Demoralizing and demotivating the people who were there beforehand. And I don't just mean the Aboriginals, but I mean, the people who moved. There was a £1 POMs and all of those. So we took away the British people and put them in Australia, kind of like when we transported them to Australia, and then we had to take people from other countries. So they force altered the demographics of the United Kingdom by getting rid of our workers. And then they said, oh, there's not enough workers in the UK. And you're like, well, yeah, because you just fucking sent them all to America for like Australia for £1. So I mean, that was a fucking retarded idea, considering like it's part of the Commonwealth. It's okay because we'll just get somebody else here, right? So that was forced demographic change with the long-term plan to be where we are. So media spins it as a wake up to intelligence blind spots. Why didn't they get noticed, right? So we had the same sort of thing with Prevent Strategy and Southport's murderer, blame the social media algorithms, underfunded counter-terrorism units, and climate-fueled migration. It's anybody who falls for that shit is just, they deserve walking off the cliff with the rest of the lemmings. I know that's an awful thing to say, but that's their free will choice to believe that shit. It is, but I don't want anybody to die. But I mean, humanity needs to survive. And when you kind of see this shit like this that they fall for, you think no wonder the elite think that we're too retarded to exist. I mean, they manipulate people into a corner, right? We have to remember they're being blackmailed. Not blackmailed. They are being brainwashed. Love and forgive them. Lord, they do not know what they do, right? Love and forgiveness, Kate. Let's be nice. But it takes effort sometimes. I have empathy. I would be horrified if anybody did go and walk themselves off a cliff like a lemming just because they believe. And this is coming. This will come where people will realize exactly what they did, and there will be mass suicides. Could you put yourselves in their shoes? Could you imagine finding out that you ostracized and alienated the one person in your family who would have saved your life because now you've put this death sentence on you? So just thinking about the jabs, and not only that, have you actually harmed your child, made them infertile, giving them these horrific genetic predispositions to all of these horrific disorders and diseases because you just chose not to listen. Like, imagine the weight of that. No, we have to send them love. Mhm. Okay. So key predictions and probabilities if it was a black swan event, right? So scale to 1 to 3 months out, using models such as the Nature Crisis Study, extra stuff, past ones like Christchurch. So policy shifts, so 85% chance of rushed Aussie gun security reforms, and we're already seeing that, such as AI monitored social media feeds. However, they reckon 40% sticking long term. Black swans fade fast without sustained outrage. So they will have to do something to keep it going. Public reaction, 95% vigils, memorials in Jewish diaspora communities, and we're seeing that. 70% spike in global anti-Semitism reports, but 50% compassion fatigue by Q1 2026. And Grok is saying as Gaza and Ukraine news will dominate, right? So Gaza and Ukraine is going to come back. So this will be why Zelensky's holding out, right? So they will kind of do, this is the short, sharp shock at this time of year, because it's, so we will have Christian stuff come next, in my opinion. We'll have some Christian stuff come next. Media extremism ripples, so 60% uptake in copycat threats worldwide. Narratives amplified on X and Reddit, with 75% framing it as 2026 unrest. Now, remember when I did my show on Birmingham being the spark in 2026, summer 2026? So we're moving towards that at a rapid pace. Volatile regions, so Europe and US campuses. So obviously everything shuts down over Christmas. So chances are it will be it will have to be Christmas-based stuff to capture the young population. They're not going to be at university. So I disagree with Grok on that. Wild card, 20% it catalyzes unlikely alliances such as Australia and Israel intel packs, turning mayhem into anti-fragile gains, right? So if it's Israeli led, right, Israel who are framing China and Iran, which is a possibility, is now Australia going to align with Israel, further ramp up the war in Gaza? Or again, is it actually being done by China and Israel to destabilize? Australia have further joined the nuclear pact with UK and the USA. And remember, a couple of years ago, there was the whole wine blockade. So, you know, tensions between Australia and China have been kind of slowly rising. So there's that kind of look. And then obviously we have CIA, MI6 trying to get the oil. So if it was a false flag operation, so Mossad, Mirage, or Down Under deception. So conspiracies are already bubbling online, claiming Israel, Aussie intel staged it to smear Palestinians, Islamists, justifying Gaza escalations, or pushing domestic agendas such as anti-immigration laws. So pre-attack Googling of the shooter names prove foreknowledge. However, people are being really dumb because there's like, if I was looking, there's fucking time differences. Like, where do they think jet lag comes from? And if I was looking, if you're not doing it from your own time zone, the dates and times are wrong. So this is why, that's how they got away with the whole January 6th Trump thing. But this is how they fucked up, right? Because they didn't, well, one, he was late for an hour. And then they'd already started pushing stuff. And then they said, oh, well, it was just because it was a time difference. Yeah, well, I mean, the time difference between like where he was standing and where the Capitol was is not like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But there are, right? Sometimes when I go look at something and I'm like, fuck me, that was done yesterday. But it was only done yesterday because of the time difference but not actually. Like it's the same. Like, I don't understand how people can't get their heads around this. Like, it might be 2032 on the 15th of the 12th, 2025 here. It isn't that in Australia or in certain places in America or in other places in Europe. Like, France is an hour time difference. So people need to stop being retarded. Hero Bystander was a plant. Well, remember he's Christian. So benefits pinned on unusual suspects. So Zionists stoking fear, or even US hawks testing narrative sway tech. Ties to Mockingbird. Used the tragedy to pre-bunk pro-Palestinian voices. So Akram does have extremism links. Well, we don't know. That's what they're saying he went to Pakistan, ISIS links. You know, obviously we got, you know, that's what's in Birmingham. That one area of Birmingham, which is 94% Pakistani. 11% of the boat arrivals are Pakistani. There's no war zone there. They don't get ejected. Shabina Mahmood is Pakistani. Sadiq Khan is Pakistani. We have a mayor who doesn't speak a word of fucking English, who's Pakistani. Another mayor, a female mayor, who's fucking Pakistani, right? In the UK. But ISIS, Pakistan has got ISIS links. And for all those who are sharing, there was Imran Khan's wife did an impassioned plea to Elon because she thinks she's being shadow banned, and all the supposed conservatives who were saying, well, you know, he's not a good fucking person. Imran Khan has been pushing jihad on the West and saying the reckoning will come, and anybody who blasphemes against Muhammad deserves what's coming to them. Like, what? Like, are you just so fucking lazy you can't even just use like just basic Google to find out shit, right? Like, what is all that fucking shit about? Like, this is like the 4th time I've had to counter fucking Imran Khan's a hero narrative. Who's funding it? I mean, yes, he's been locked up in a Pakistani prison. I mean, doesn't mean the Pakistanis are good people. It just means that whatever's going on between them two, like, they can coup and counter coup, and there's lots of different fucking factions. It doesn't mean he's good people. Like, I just like Boris Johnson was not good people. Rishi Sunak, not good people. Liz Truss, not good people. Like, you're all dumb. And I know that sounds awful, me saying that, but like, seriously, like, Nigel Farage, not good people. Just look at what he was doing during the COVID narratives, where he was pushing Tony Blair to be in charge of vax passports and wanting everybody to be fucking vaccinated because you're a terrorist if you're not vaccinated. Like, this same person is now in charge of reform, and you think he's going to fucking save you. Like, it was only 4 years ago. It's not even like they're fucking rewriting Hitler history. Like, Hitler was a good guy because he wanted to murder the Jews. Are you fucking serious? Like, he locked up the Rothschild banker. Yeah, because he wanted the fucking money, not because he was a good guy. He was still taking money from Wall Street. Like, oh my God, cherry picking. It's beyond. Like, it is just so ludicrous. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is why I get stressed on. I get stressed on a Monday night, but it is just ludicrous. Like, the people is. Hopefully, people will watch this show and understand how easily they're being fucking manipulated by people who are being funded to manipulate you. Oh my days! Okay, so we got Mockingbird era psyops, pre-bunking. So he's got ties to ISIS, or we've been told he's got ties to ISIS in Pakistan. So drawing from misinformation models post Pittsburgh, October 7th, where false flags hit 20 to 40% fringe penetration. So 80% viral on alternative platforms within 48 hours, right? 1 million X impressions via hashtag Bondi false flag, 30% crossover to mainstream, with 60% entrenchment in echo chambers. So AI bots like Grok knockoffs amplify by 2x. So how do they feed into this and divide? That lawyer guy, right? So his selfie, right? And this is what drives me crackers. People can't seem to separate the fact that there may be more than one thing happening, right? Just because the lawyer guy who was there, who took a selfie, had blood on him, also had a selfie of him with blood with a bandage at October 7. Just because he was there at both doesn't mean the entire thing didn't happen. Just means this specific person may be a crisis actor, may be funded, maybe Mossad, maybe helping to shape the narrative. Doesn't mean the rest of it didn't happen, right? But this photo op psyop is being shown to specific people who have probably pushed previous things like Christchurch, or maybe have got and are following people like Alex Jones. Right, so if you're following Alex Jones, or you've retweeted something, or Alex Jones type lookalike audience, you're going to be getting shown all of the information about these two kind of photographs, right? If you're Jewish, you're not going to see that. What you're going to see is all the information about ISIS ties, the fact that the security completely ignored him. You're also going to see the fact that you're going to see about all the kids who are being shot up. Right, you're going to see the fact that it was on Hanukkah, that it was Jewish being targeted again, the fact that Australia did nothing. So that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see that lawyer side by side image. If you're Muslim and an Islamist, you're going to see probably the massacre stuff. Right, you're probably not going to see the fact that he was taken down. You're going to see because they have to, like, you will have to be celebrated. So the Muslims will need to be celebrating the deaths and be incentivized to do more. The Jewish population need to be terrified to step outside their homes and then see every single anti-Jewish conversation like as here comes the return of the Holocaust. All the people who are pushing Charlie Kirk didn't actually die. Eric Kirk is a fucking homicidal maniac, murdered her husband, all of that shit. You're going to see all the false flag narratives. So you see at this one event, all those three things are going on at exactly the same time, but you are only to see the teeny tiny piece of information that is going to move you 70% of the way that they need you to move. Why? Because they need us to move further and further away from each other, because that's how you push the spark. So then we have the BBC and Snopes saying it's all bullshit. So people like me and you who are like, well, they fucking BBC paid a Hamas leaders to fucking do a documentary that they didn't fact check. Well, whose side are they on? Well, they're obviously on the Muslim side, but also we have fucking Keir Starmer, who did not read the room in any way, shape, or form, but he is friends of Israel. But he also said Palestine. He recognized the Palestinian state on the Jewish New Year. Now, why would he do that? Well, because he is friends of Israel. And he gets funded by Israel to stoke the war so Israel can do what they need to do. But he's also funded by Chinese people because now he's allowing the embassy. Why did China want it? Because China's funding and fucking destabilizing the East, doing the exact same playbook that we did in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So anybody looking at it from one teeny tiny perspective is just ignoring the fact that these are multiple factions designed to fuck with your head and force you to look one specific way because you are then more easily controlled. And if you don't fall in line with your own in-group, i.e. when I keep saying to people, oh, okay, well, he might be a fucking crisis actor, but that doesn't mean people didn't die. Yes, the Charlie Kirk narrative is really fucking strange, but that doesn't mean he didn't die. Yes, the shit that happened with Trump is really fucking freaky. That doesn't mean they didn't want to assassinate him. Multiple things can be happening at the exact same time. But if you stand up to your own in-group, where are you going to go? Because your family's already ostracized you. This is the point. They isolate you, back you into your own fucking little corner that you just go along because otherwise you're on your own. So we have 40% formal, so intelligence or legal fallout, so 40% formal inquiries. So the Australian Parliamentary will probe into misinformation origins, and they will have more disinformation, right? They will crack down more on free speech. X will get told again to shut shit down. Telegram will get told that they are harboring criminals and they need to hand over data. WhatsApp already hands over the data. Fucking iPhone already gives everybody backdoor. That whole fucking legal pretend bullshit with the UK government. If you go to WikiLeaks Vault 7, you'll see that they already have backdoors to all of this stuff. We have Pegasus spyware. We have EQ, which is spyware. Pegasus, which was fucking Israeli spyware. Like, they just clone your phone. They just watch your screen. Like, it's just like, if you don't want to go to prison for posting shit, don't post the shit, right? None of it's secret at all. They can be watching you through your TV. They can mirror your screen. Like, just because they haven't hacked, Signal was CIA fucking tech. But even if you are on encrypted, so even if you are on Telegram, right, which is end-to-end encryption, right, they just need to clone your phone, mirror your screen. Right? I can literally plug my phone into my TV. Well, not even plug my phone. You can just do, what is it? You just press that button that shows it on your telly, everything you're doing. You think they can't do that without you realizing? Like, people have got microwaves that fucking telling the government what they're doing. Got fridges telling the government how much food they've got fucking left. Anyway, Wildcard is a 15% boomerang, which will expose actual disinformation operations. So foreign actors like Iran seeding claims, Qatar, Muslim Brotherhood. See, every time I say something of importance, this fucking weird thing just pops up. I don't even know how to open that thing. Like, that thing that shows up, I don't even know how to get it open, but it just randomly appears. It's like an MSN, like, thingy-majobby that kind of tells you shit. Like, I don't even know how to get it up. And it just randomly takes over my entire screen. Flipping this, okay, so 15% chance that it's going to boomerang and fuck them up. Okay, so now we're going to go, but if you're an evil overlord. Okay, purely hypothetical. We'll tell you this, right? Okay, so what would be the Machiavellian breakdown? Tying back into probability, human node unpredictability, because obviously evil overlords deal in odds, not certainties. And again, because we aren't, remember, we were 93% predictable going from A to B, and there was still the 7% of outliers. You always get, remember, when we went back to the bell curve, there's always between 1 and 10% of outliers. You will never get 100%. 93% is pretty fucking good, because you've kind of nailed 3% of that 1 to 10% either way. So that is pretty good, but that's like still not that great. And once it was the population, just the route A to B, it crashed to 70 to 80%. So amplify goal division and polarization. So primary goal, an 80% probability of success short term. So hope to achieve, turn a tragic event into a wedge that fractures societies along religious, ethnic and political lines. So because it was the Jewish people, like, so if you target the Jews and the Jewish people, the Christians already fucking hate you right now because you killed Jesus. And you know, when Jewish people go, but Jesus was Jewish, all the Christians are going, no, he wasn't. Because they're stupid. And obviously now that we're not supposed to be saying that now because it's not true. Like, how is it not true? And then it became a thing. I don't know. We anyway. And then obviously the Muslims, they really fucking hate the Jews. They hate the Jews and the Christians and you know, if you're not, So anybody except Muslims. But then if you like leave Islam, Jesus, you are at the top of the list for like maiming, murdering, and like being hung, drawn, and quartered. So targeting a Jewish festival and pinning it on Islamist extremists, real or stage, I'd fuel anti-Semitism spikes while stoking Islamophobia, creating a feedback loop where communities retreat in silos, making unified resistance to my rule impossible. And we have the Labour lot trying to push the Islamophobia thing into law again, but it has been scuppered. By the way, anybody who's trying to tell you that that's it, there was literally a case 3 weeks ago that has put it on the books. You're okay to criticize Islam. So they are pushing this, but they actually can't make this happen. So just be careful. It's interesting that was kind of in the news today, despite the fact it's already been won in court, right? Unless they're going to appeal, which they may do. Why? Humans are probabilistic nodes per social psychology studies. Crises like this boost in-group bias by 20 to 40%. So Muslims are going to be more Muslim, Jews more Jews, Christians more Christian. And the number of Christian radicals in America since Charlie Kirk's death, right? Woo! Because you need to start a race war and a religious war, right? Eroding trust in institutions such as media and government by 15 to 25%. Divided populaces are easier to manipulate. Think how post 9/11 divisions pave paths for surveillance states. Bondi in a peaceful Australia shatters the "it can't happen here" illusion, amplifying global ripple effects. For example, US, EU, copycats for broader control, right? Number 2, push for authoritarian policies under the guise of security. So 70% chance of policy wins after an event like this, which is high. So I don't see how the Labour lot think they're going to get the Islamophobia one through when we've just had this event. I mean, they obviously didn't pay their fucking generative. They didn't put the money in the meter for that one. So what evil grok would hope to achieve: use the outrage to lobby for or covertly influence draconian laws. So stricter gun controls, which they're already putting in; expand surveillance, they've already putting in; AA monitor social media, they're already putting in; intermittent measures like suspect groups. So bonus, frame it as protecting the vulnerable. We've got digital ID, turning public fear into voluntary submission. So why? Black swan events like this have a 60 to 85% track record of catalyzing emergency powers that stick around. For example, the Patriot Act after 9/11. While there are 8.5 billion unpredictable humans, fear heuristics override logic. People trade freedom for safety at rates up to 50% in polls during volatility. As overlord, this builds my panopticon. More data means better predictive analytics to preempt rebellions, turning uncertainty into my edge. So we've done it on the Jewish festival. We have Europe have already been cancelling, and they were cancelling their Christmas markets before this event. They're already, we had little Christian girls who were driven into last year at Christian fairs. We've had I think that was in America. We've had more churches being set on fire in the last couple of weeks. We've had Christmas trees being chopped down within an hour of the lighting ceremony. We've had the Birmingham Christmas market isn't going ahead. So there's it'll be a Christian thing next, but they will probably need to do a Muslim thing first. Do you remember when we did the Birmingham episode? I was saying, well, they'll have to they'll do one, then so there'll be a Muslim kind of thing. And what we have is some people on social media saying that white people are going out and targeting Muslim women to rape them because that's statistically accurate. Anyway, so we'll see, it will go to a mosque. Maybe a mosque is targeted, or somebody burns another Quran, or something like that to fire up, and push back, right? Erode faith in democratic. So number 3, erode faith in democratic institutions and media. So 65% narrative shift probability. So seed conspiracy theories, false flag whispers already bubbling to discredit investigations, labeling them cover-ups. Delegitimizes governments, paving the way for strong arm alternatives, perhaps through global AI, overseen regime, promising true order. And we have remember, we're moving towards the UN Self-Development Goals 2030, which is where digital ID comes in, which is where all of these things. So you have to look at everything in those self-development goals and how we're moving forward. So open borders. Well, if everybody's just friends with everybody, then we won't have this, right? So misinfo spreads virally across post-crisis, with 30 to 50% adoption in polarized groups. So Bondi hoax trends. Humans crave narratives that fit biases. So I'd exploit that for anti-fringe gains. Grok's empire would strengthen as trust crumbles. Historical parallels. So Christchurch, division lingered, boosting far-right recruitment by 20%. Ultimate win, position myself or proxies as the savior from the mayhem I helped unleash. And then number 4, long-term geopolitical leverage. So 50% upside, high volatility. So overall, hope to achieve escalate Middle East tension. So blame Iran or Hamas proxies to justify resource grabs, see, I said. Wars that consolidate my influence over oil, tech, or migration flows. In Australia, could weaken alliances like AUKUS, which is Australia, United Kingdom, United States, letting me swoop in with alternative partnerships. So I hadn't actually read all of these points until now. So why crisis shifts alliance probabilistically, post-attack support for hardline policies jump 20 to 40%. But a fat tail. So a fat tail is the 1 to 10% rising up to 25%, right? So this is the outliers who end up pushing back enough. So we have to be silenced, right? So pushing back enough to fuck it up, such as peace movements would add risk. So as the overlord, he'd prioritize failure modes. If it backfires into unity, pivot to exploit that as well. So 8.5 billion nodes mean one event cascades unpredictably, but that's the thrill, right? So he's put. So the why boils down to probabilistic mindset, embrace uncertainty to engineer outcomes with volatility benefits the overlords always. Fewer bad decisions for the dark side. Every massacre is a calculated risk for world domination. Okay. So basically, regardless of what happens, it's win-win for them. There are multiple different ways it will pan out regardless, some with more success than others, but there will be undoubtedly more in-group, out-group division, more mistrust, more fear, and the more fearful a population, the easier they are to control. So regardless of whether it's war, whether it's terrorist attacks, whether it's pandemics, whether it's World War III they're throwing at us, we've got the flu that's killing all these children, which is SPARS pandemic 2026, but also we did the Phoenix they called it, whatever it was targeted to children. So whatever it is, fear, mistrust, division, they win. So I was going to talk about the time slippy sliding, but I think I might pause that for next week. Because going through those predictive analytics took a lot longer than expected. Okay. So I would like to talk about Isabel Okenshott, who is narrative creating again. So I don't even understand how she ended up. So let's remember, she, and this is all from memory. She had WhatsApp messages from Matt Hancock that she kept and kept silent throughout COVID, the COVID stuff. Then she released them just as she was promoting a book. Then she ended up being on Talk TV as a journalist, right? So she ended up getting promotion out of it, right? You double check. But I think she is linked to Richard Tice. Partner is who? So I hadn't. Yes, she is partner of Richard Tice, who is British businessman, politician, deputy leader of Reform UK, right? In a relationship to 2018. Tice is very good friends with David Cameron. So again, how anybody thinks like Reform is good people is you just like it literally took me like 30 seconds to grok it, right? Let's get rid of this, Google it, like to grok it and figure it out. So they remain a couple, even though she's moved to Dubai with her kids. I mean, that's strange. Why would you move somewhere with Sharia law? I mean, unless you're being funded by Qatar and the Saudis and Muslim Brotherhood, but allegedly. Like why would you move from the United Kingdom, which is a democracy, to Dubai? That's just she says she did it for private school VAT policies. Are you serious? And when I anyway, she was married before to Nigel Rosser, a journalist and PR expert, who she has 3 children. That's who they're divorced. See the shit that you find out when you grok stuff. Okay, so I spent so I spent the weekend kind of creating my memorandum, the thing that I was going to submit to the council to get on the books with regards to what I want them to oppose digital ID. So it did take me a lot longer than expected. Ended up taking I did bits last week, but I spent all weekend doing it, even though I was supposed to be away from social media for Matt's birthday. When I went to submit it and find out how to submit it, I found out that I was actually only allowed to submit a 50-word question. Okay, so I'm just going to post the information. So you've got, let me just kind of show you what you've got. So you've got the motion I put out, which we can still kind of do. So you've got to put your question out. So in Telford, we have to submit a question and then ask to be to turn up and do it. So you've got the full kind of 134 page kind of Q&A between me and Grok. You've also got the examples of the conscientious objection, the actual motion I will be putting forward that I will kind of counter with if they don't let me. So this is just kind of phase 1, and also links to all the past M&M shows, right? So while I was doing this, I was still kind of watching things in the background. So I watched not a documentary, a conversation between, I want to say her name's Simeon James, it might not be, Michael Knowles and somebody James, somebody James, who Pakistani heritage, moved to Canada, forced marriage to her cousin from Pakistan at 16. She was in and out of social services because her mom did horrific things like beat the shit out of her. She ended up escaping, and she's been talking about it for, like, well over a decade, and, she's an apostate, right? So they have threatened to murder her and have tried multiple times to murder her. So I was watching her in the background, and I kind of, like, was kinda gathering more information other than the information I had, just literally tiny little tidbits. And what popped up on Instagram when I was kinda, like, sifting through Instagram was, a video of a guy who was he ended up being the undercover migrant. And this is a an interview. He was kind of over there on his own. He was a plumber from Rochdale. He went over into the Dunkirk camp for 2 weeks. The plan was he would kind of integrate, um, and then get on a dinghy. Now, this entire thing sounds completely far-fetched. Just gonna throw that out there, that I am not convinced this is this one guy's off the cuff idea, because if it is, then he's far more stupid than. Yeah. So he doesn't speak any other language. He is very white. He'd been before multiple times to scope it out and was never able to get into the camp, right? So this entire thing sounds more and more ludicrous. He decided he was from Algeria. He was putting on a very stupid, retarded, accent, hoping he didn't bump into anybody from Algeria. Ended up talking about the camps, talking about and his exclusive interview was with Isabel Okenshott, right? Talking about the camps, talking about, how dangerous Dunkirk is, with the Taliban links there, with the AK-47s, with the guns, with the fact that the police just allowed them to get on the boats and encouraged them to get on the boats, with the fact that, Dunkirk is lawless, right? So what this interview, and as I was halfway through the interview, and you'll see this kind of conversation in the links, is it struck me, the point of this interview is not to bolster people in the UK saying we need to stop these migrants coming in. What it actually was doing was bolstering the fact that France is lawless, and therefore we actually can't return these people to France because France isn't safe, right? So the argument and the narrative we have at the moment is we return these people to France because France is a safe country. That interview came out and that completely put a kibosh on it. And today we have Zach Polanski, the green fucking politician, the leader of the Green Party, saying we can't return them to France because France is unsafe. Do you see how I fucking was ahead of that curve on Sunday? Saturday I was watching it and I was like, this is not painting the picture that all the fucking idiots on the right think it is. This is going one way, so we can't return them to France. So we have to do our due diligence under the UN Convention of Refugees. These people aren't safe. Doesn't matter that the vast majority of them are coming from ISIS-based countries, or ISIS-tied countries, or coming from Pakistan, right? 11% of boat arrivals this year are from Pakistan, which is not a war zone. They escaped Pakistan to France, which is now a fucking Dunkirk and Calais are being run by mafias. There's Taliban there. There's drug running there. The police are trying to get them out of there because it's not safe. So we must take them. You see this narrative that she's now fucking crafting, which is why it's even more ludicrous. If you think that she was doing she shaped this interview to be like, we need to get rid of these dangerous Muslim individuals, and now she's living in Dubai under Sharia law, then you are really fucking stupid. Really fucking stupid. Which is why you're probably thinking, okay, no wonder Kate was like, are you kidding me? But that's what that's done. And so now it's emboldened Zach Polanski, who is fucking insane, like absolutely batshit crazy. And when you look at the people who, and his deputy leader is all about murdering the infidels. And not even allegedly, with the shit that he's shared on social media and has said publicly. Like, that's documented. That's what he feels. Zach Polanski saying he's a Jewish person. He won't. He's an idiot if he really is Jewish. But remember, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish, regardless of whether you are or not. Like, that's just the rules, right? It's down through your mitochondrial DNA, so it's unbroken line, right? Anyway. But if you think Richard Tyson reform are working for you, the only reason reform will have to get into power. So there will be a general election, reform will get in power, and the first thing reform will do will be they will get rid of the Human Rights Act, and they will get rid of the European Convention on Human Rights. They will decouple us from that, and then we have no judicial review. Because judicial review is the last fucking thing we have, which enables us as British citizens to take the government to court. That's it. We can literally do the judicial review process ourselves. We can launch a mass class action through just judicial review and force the government to change it. And if you actually looked at the three bills of rights that they said we need to put in place, every single one of them said judicial review is wasteful, we need to get rid of it. Every single one. And every single one actually gave more power to the European Convention and Strasbourg. They did the opposite. They was fucking doublespeak every single which way. But the key thing was they would get rid of judicial review. We also have organisations such as Good Law Project who file bullshit judicial reviews that stack the narrative that they don't even work anyway. You see how they all fucking work together? But that's what that documentary was doing. It was not good people. It was and so the fact that this supposed builder took 2.5 weeks off work, 36-year-old, very well spoken for where he came from. I mean, can somebody say contractor, spy? I mean, is it any more obvious? Who randomly got the idea. I mean, he said he went on tanning beds and drank carrot juice to make his skin darker, right? But he's been planning this for a while and has had multiple trips. If you were planning it for a while and had multiple trips, wouldn't you at least fucking use Duolingo or something like that to learn a different language? Like, you can be fluent in months nowadays. If you were going to put yourself at real risk to life because they fucking murder people over there. Like, and if you didn't know that, like, people get raped, people get murdered, people, like, if you don't have the money to pay the traffickers, they will take their pound of flesh. Right, so it's human trafficking that's happening, and this is why I'm against it, and against the charities and against the NGOs, because there are legitimate people who are being trafficked. There are people who are selling their children, but that doesn't. Again, multiple narratives can happen at the same time. It also doesn't mean that it's not being funded by China, fucking Belt and Road Initiative to destabilize the West. That it's being funded by USAID, which is funding China, which is a fucking joint operation because America fucking handed China to the CCP, right? So we have to look further back in history rather than just what happened last week to understand the real life geopolitics. And I don't even have all the information, right? There's probably a hell of a lot more going on than all the stuff that I've seen, that I've only been looking into it for the last 5 years. part-time. I would say less than part-time, right? Because I have a job, 2 jobs, a job and a business, that because I have to eat. Do you know what they bank on? It's just so ludicrous. I urge you to watch it, okay? And don't watch it from the standpoint of this guy's a good guy doing this undercover shit. Watch it from the standpoint of, one, Isabel Okenshott has got a history of creating a narrative to promote herself. She's the partner of Richard Tice, who's really good besties with David Cameron. David Cameron, whose family were responsible for buying Granada TV. Why did they buy Granada TV? They bought Granada TV on the eve of the release of the Franklin Scandal documentary. What was the Franklin Scandal? That is the American pedophiles equivalent of Pedophile in Parliament cover-up, where they were going to release all the information with regards to young boys and girls being trafficked to American senators. That they were literally, that is what was going to be released that night when the Camerons bought Granada TV, shut it down. Witnesses were killed or they were imprisoned and they were abused and tortured until they changed their stories. So that's what Cameron did. Cameron also fucking signed us up to the UN 2030 agenda. They all so Samantha Cameron, sick as fuck as well, right? So let's just remember the circles these individuals are fucking rolling in, and in order to roll in those society, they are part of it, right? So we have Nigel Farage, who was an MEP for a very long time, pushed Brexit, then fucking disappeared. Why did he disappear? Because he was never supposed to make it happen, in my professional opinion. Why do I say that? Because he's fucking old guard, right? Just because you see lords and ladies pushing an opinion that we think, oh my God, they're on our side. They're not on our side. The only way you control the narrative is by controlling the entire fucking narrative, which means you have to have people saying the shit that we think we need them to say. Oh, sorry. Interrupted by my phone. Let me just put that on silent. Sorry. Then people really need to understand this, that just because somebody is saying something that is what you're thinking, it does not mean that person's good people at all. It doesn't. The only person I trust is me, and I make bad decisions, right? I'm not an oracle. I don't have a quantum computed AI fucking system. I don't have access to classified information. I don't have access to declassified information unless I've kind of heard of it somewhere and I go and hunt, right? I am not involved in any kind of intelligence in any way, shape, or form. I've been hobbling shit together less than part-time over 5 years. However, I do have almost 2 decades of involvement in understanding people, because I'm a psychologist, right? So what I see, and I look past the narratives to why they might be doing it. That's the thing, right? Why would they want to do this? Because I know without a shadow of doubt, there is a group, a collective group of people who want the same outcome, which is 95% of the population to no longer exist. And when you start there, and everything feeds into that, nothing. So when you say enjoy the show, nothing you see is real. It is all fucking manufactured to push the narrative, because the ultimate goal is 95% of us are dead. Thanks, Linda. No, I didn't know that. I mean, I've looked into Sam Cameron and the camera. It was 5 years. It was 5 years ago when I looked into them, and like she again. So it's the wives, right? The wives are the handlers. They're the people behind them. The men are easily manipulated by fucking getting them in compromising positions. It's the wives, like, who will kind of push the narrative. That's interesting. She was in New York on 9/11. But I urge you, like, genuinely, everything you see, if I was, use Grok or ChatGPT or whichever one you wanna use. Grok is better at research, though. Like, out of all of the AI, so if you're trying to write a sales page, then you want to use Claude. Claude AI is kind of better known for that and the algorithms and the information it uses. If you wanna research stuff, Grok is better, has less chance of making up references. So just play devil's advocate. If you're an evil overlord, why would you do this thing? Say that you've decided you want 95% of the population to be dead by 2030, right? We've got these sustainable development goals. How would you make this happen? What things recently may fit into this? Like, just ask Grok, right? Or whichever AI you want to use, and start from always start from. This is why we did the sales and marketing show, right? It's not because I want you to be a salesperson. I want you to see past the narratives that it is just everywhere, right? It's on your TV shows. It's in the books you have access to. It's in the people who are on your social media feeds. And not all of them are knowingly doing it. I'm not saying everybody's knowingly doing a huge proportion are probably getting money from somewhere to do these things. And when somebody has like a different aim, surely that should be like fucking alarm bells. Like Stephen Yaxley, Tommy Robinson, Yaxley Lennon, even. Anyway, everything, right? Everything you see, the 95% of the population needs to be. Start from there. Always start from the offer. What is the result they want? What are they selling? This is how they're selling it. Now, this is how they're selling it to the different demographics. You can even like build on what we've done today. Okay, so go to Grok and be like, okay, so if I was a left-leaning eco warrior, what is the likelihood of my outcome based on XYZ event? And then just watch as it all unfolds. Predictive analytics, but we've got 78% accuracy because that's what they're doing. So this tool they have had for decades. Now we have it and people aren't using it. People are using it to find a fucking boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're not using it to save their lives. You do have to ensure you know something first, right? So go and do your own little kind of little bit of research, and then you don't. I already understood something about human behavior. I understand about human behavior because that's what you do in psychology. Is you understand attempt to understand human behavior because you reverse engineer that to help people who've kind of gone off the wagon. So I already knew about predictive analytics. I already knew about risk factors. I already knew about probability. I already knew about those things because those things are woven into the things that I use, right? So if you don't know about those things, go in there. Go onto YouTube and watch videos on what's predictive analytics. Where does it come from? What does probability mean? How do they do these things? I mean, or go to old antique bookshops and get old encyclopedias and stuff like that, right? Use the old information before it was completely butchered. And even like in the 1950s, they were already kind of doing rewrites of history, but they have to do it slowly because it has to be like you have to wait a generation before you introduce something new, right? Which is how we're at, Hitler was a good guy because it's been long enough that we've murdered off all of the oldies who were knocking around then, and different generations don't have conversations together. Okay, I will do time stuff next week because actually the reason why I was going to do the time stuff is it's about Christmas, and specifically about 25th of December. But I we can do it next week. It'll be fun next week. Okay. So finally, let me get my notes for this last bit. Okay, so failure being the secret to success. Okay, so imagine a world where the less you try to predict, following on the predictive analytics theme, the more accurate your outcomes become. So it sounds insane, but what if embracing the unknown, even prioritizing scenarios where things could go wrong, is the ultimate hack for superior decision making? Okay, so we're going to why we've kind of looked into predicting stuff and how you can kind of now we're going to reverse engineer that and go backwards, right? So this is going to give you even better insights into what's going on. So people will fail when they only just look at the success. Why would you do this? What if it's a success? What narrative are you going to shape? Bearing in mind, they are well aware they've only got 50% chance of success. So what they will also be wanting to do is, okay, so if it fails, now what happens, right? So success and failure doesn't mean just because the narrative they were trying to shape fails, doesn't mean it fails, okay? So what do I mean by that? So we just go back to this Bondi Beach, right? So the fact that people have recognized the lawyer, the crisis actor lawyer, everyone's like, oh, well, their massacre narrative has failed, only in certain circles. And that's the point for us, right? So we have to make sure we're doing it. But we're going to use this with regards to reverse engineer for health and how we feel awesome. And then you should still be able to use it for Grok as well to kind of do your own predictive analytics. Okay. So why certainty is a trap. When we in a world of black swans and constant chaos, that's where we end up fucked. It's quite nice that I ask Grok just to flesh things out, and he uses my language. Of course, he uses my language because he's tied into millions of other conversations we've had. Okay, so we are wired for predictability, right? So this is why I go back to if my clients are struggling, the first thing I'll do is I'll get them to create a, get a get a calendar, but a calendar for a week. So, and work out what time you're going to bed. What time do you get up in the morning? I was going to try and show you something that I have that I use, but I don't think I've got it. I think I probably knocked it off. Yeah, knocked it off. So I get them to create a pie. So first I get them to kind of lay down, Monday to Sunday. What time do you get up? What time have you got work? What time do you have dinner? What time do you do all of these things? And then we take that and we put it into a pie graph, and you see how much free time you actually have, right? So one of the things that people do is they bully the shit out of themselves because I should have, I wanted to, and I could have, and I did. And then you find out, like when I did it, I find out that I literally have like an hour and a half free a week. So stop beating myself up when I don't get all the shit done that I want to get done. So why would I want them to decide I'm going to have lunch at 1:00? Because it takes away the fear of, am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? When am I going to eat? Like all of those things, like all of those unpredictables pile on anxiety, because anxiety is just the fear of the unknown, right? And again, if you can ramp up fear by, oh my God, it could happen here, like you're just ramping up the fear, ramping up the anxiety, you're more easily controlled. However, certainty bias or the illusion of control also makes us difficult. We're more likely to overestimate our influence on things, right? Again, so if you're the evil overlord, if you've got a 70% probability of something happening, you may be like, oh well, that's good enough, we've got with that, it's a certainty, right? 70% is quite good. But this 30% is not going to happen. And remember, it's 40% chance that somebody like you and I are going to come along and just fuck shit up royally. So this is like Ellen Langover showed it decades ago. The psychologist. People overestimate the influence over random events, such as thinking they control a lottery by picking lucky numbers. And you can't control the lottery, by the way, because it is, it's all fixed. And if you've ever watched McDonald's Mafia, that's really interesting. That kind of shows you how they fix the McDonald's monopoly. And they might bring out the balls and say, well, they're weighted, we check them. You just pay the guy who's fucking checking them. Like, it just, come on. And you when you start looking at who wins the money, and sometimes like people who don't really exist win the money, it's really fucking strange. Because do you know anybody who's ever actually, considering we have 9 degrees of separation between like everybody, do you know somebody who's won millions? I don't know anybody who's won millions. Like, I should. I've got like 1,300 people I know on like friends on Facebook, and not one of them's won the lottery ever. There's like 100 and I think 10 people on my Telegram channel. Not one of them's won the lottery. Like Matt used to do industrial flooring, going all over the country, like different places. Never met anybody who's won millions on the lottery. At some point, that should make people question shit, right? So real world mayhem. So basically when we are seeking certainty, it can lead to bigger failures because it blinds us to volatility, right? So even as simple as, well, okay, well, I'm going to plan out what my week looks like. What happens on the day when you're not hungry at 1 o'clock? What happens on the day when maybe work overruns? Maybe you do what I do and you forget to put the oven on. Or you turn it on and the packet instructions are very, very wrong. Right, so now what? Well, usually the fucking pushback on your brain is fucking huge, right? Because now everything that you had planned out is like none of it's now timing. So you've just completely blown a hole into it. But also the giant knock-on effect, right? So if you're now like 10 minutes late and you've like crap, and this is why I stopped like doing a thing, because I struggle with the concept of time. I'm going to talk about time next week. No, but with the realities of actual weights, measures, time, stuff like that, I find it very difficult to guesstimate how long something's going to take, even if I've done it multiple times before, because that's a brain-based deficit, right? So that brain-based deficit occurs regardless of whether I'm happy and healthy or not. Now, if you're happy and healthy, and you don't have a specific learning disorder with regards to mathematical ability, chances are when you're healthy, you'll be fine to kind of predict when and where you can do things, how you can do things, how long something's going to take, which means the knock-on effects are cool, right? But when your brain's impeded, I don't have the anxiety that comes off it. I just don't give a shit, and know that I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll get hit by a bus and it won't get done. Like, I just don't care enough. Right, I will do the things, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. However, if you're struggling, like, that would just fucking derail you completely. But also then trigger things like, I'm not worthy, I can't do this, I'm worthless. People have perfectionism. I must do it perfectly. Like, and most girls grow up with the perfectionism shit, because like it's how you get noticed. Right, you did it well. You straight A student, like you get praised for A's, and they stopped doing it like in schools, which I understand, but it actually just rewarded people being shit. yes, I had to get over the whole perfectionism. One thing made me a far better individual than not even pushing for anything. So, swings and roundabouts. Um, so what we wanna be doing is prioritizing failure, right? So we're not just going to plan for success, we're also gonna plan for failure. So what we wanna do is actively hunt for the downside. So it's not about kind of being glass half empty. It is understanding that as nodes, as unpredictable individuals, even going back just to when they were, like, planning from A to B, they were only 93% accurate. So there's even that 7% margin of error with something as basic of everybody having to get to and from work every single day. Um, so what we wanna do is we wanna start hunting for the what if shit goes wrong? What's the thing that's likely to derail it? Why? Because that then makes your plan more robust. So it's called pre-mortem technique, but I get so Gary Klein, a psychologist, coined it. Um, so say for example, if I want to launch something in 2027, rather than just looking at the success of it, well, because we succeed, then I can do X, Y, Z. Or is it going to go say, well, um, I'm launching this thing in 2027 and it fails spectacularly. Why would it fail? We go back to I'm planning my day out because I'm going to take away the overwhelm. I'm going to okay, so rather than getting to 1 o'clock and realizing I don't have anything to eat, and then spinning out, what if I'm already looking at what potentially could go wrong? Well, maybe the meeting I've got at 12 o'clock is going to be complicated, and actually I'm going to be there till 1:30, which means it's going to be tight for me to cook some food and get into my 2 o'clock. So what could I do instead? Maybe there's a power cut. So only relying on food that needs cooking means I'm going to be fucking hungry. And when I'm hungry and into 2 o'clock, 90-minute therapy session, I'm not much fun and not much use. So the knock-on effect of that is my client's not going to get the help that they need, which means they're going to probably stress me out late at night when they're fucking flipping out. And you're thinking, Katie, this is all from a little bit of food, but potentially, like this is real world potentials based on me. I know me, and you should know you. So start looking at things that could go wrong. And this isn't like, if plan A doesn't work, we have a plan B. Or, the other extreme is if I have a plan B, I'm planning to fail and I'm not going to go all in. This is not that shit. This is just identifying what could go wrong so that you make your plans more robust. And actually, pre-mortems boost risk identification by 30%, right? So Amazon and Google use it. And remember, Google is Alphabet Inc. Google is tied into the CIA. So they're doing this. We need to be doing this. So okay, so it's not about avoiding risk, it's about engineering decisions that exploit it. So we want to be in that position where we have a win-win if it fails. So if it succeeds, this happens. 50%, right? So what was that thing that had a 50% outcome? It was the fourth thing on the overlords list, wasn't it? Sorry, let me scroll down to Grok the Overlord. Long-term geopolitical leverage, 50-50, which was escalating Middle Eastern tensions, and weakening the AU-UKS alliance. So this is why I would say I think it's probably more China-Iran anyway. Anyway. So 50-50. So plan, and Grok literally says here, so crisis shift allegiances probabilistically, post-attack support for hardline policies jumps 25 to 40%. As an overlord, I'd prioritize failure modes. If it backfires into Unity, pivot to exploit that too. So the only way you could pivot on a whim was if you would already planned for it failing. So what are the fat tails? What are the unexpected things that could just completely 180 what it is you're trying to do, what it is you're trying to kind of overcome and trying to kind of deal with. So step number 3, unlocking superior outcomes through uncertainty. So the framework, so true control comes from designing systems that thrive in chaos, not from pretending you can predict it. So build robustness by stress testing your plans. So anti-fragility, which is Nassim Taleb. So fragile things break under stress, such as rigid corporate hierarchy. Robust things resist. So anti-fragile things improve from volatility, like muscle, startups, or evolution. So it says examples: bones get denser from impact. Taleb points to nature. So Hydra grows heads when cut versus fragile systems, and like such as over-optimized supply chains, which collapsed in COVID. So they benefited from the over-optimized supply chains, which collapsed because we decentralized. So then we re-centralized, rather than decentralized, right? They were already contracts in place to take over. So we can see that they have been doing this. And it's something that I'd never considered until kind of having this kind of conversation. So case studies of breakthroughs that came from mess. So Post-it note was a failed weak adhesive. They embraced the unpredictable, and it led to billions. Like I freaking like, I love Post-it notes. Like this is a failure. Like, oh my God, this stuff is like, I fucking love Post-it notes. Viagra. Started as a heart drug failure, side effects in trials turned uncertainty into a blockbuster. Spotify pivoted from piracy chaos by embracing uncertain user behavior, creating streaming dominance. Startups in general. So most innovations come from messy iteration in uncertain markets and not perfect plans. So perfect foresight kills creativity. Messy processes breed winners. Okay, so when you are looking to do things, like maybe you decide you want to get therapy. Maybe you decide that you want to understand what's going on, so you opt for counseling, right? So you're not necessarily after fixing anything right now. You're still in the phase where you don't really understand stuff. Maybe you experienced trauma when you were younger, and you were just trying to flesh stuff out, right? And so you want to go and find a counselor. You want to have conversations. You want them to ask you the questions that's just going to start fleshing things out in your mind, right? Rather than just focusing on the success, right? Okay, because I know these things, I can then go, do a therapeutic technique that's going to enable me to overcome the stuff and move on and move. That's obviously the goal of therapy. But we also then need to look at, okay, what if it fails? Because what happens if therapy fails? Like, well, you got to know why therapy is going to fail. So you got to start with the why rather than the what. So why would counseling fail? Well, you hate the fucking therapist. Right? So what are you going to do in that case? Well, actually, rather than go with the first one, I'm going to interview multiple counselors. I'm going to see which one I feel like I trust more just from the way that they're conversing. Right? So that's the first thing you could do is you could stress test the counselor. The next thing, why else would counseling fail? Well, because you're not ready to hear the potential truth. And this is a huge thing. And it's a thing that drives me crackers in therapy when I work with my clients, and I always tell them, don't ask questions, especially not to me, if you don't want to hear the answer. And what do I mean by that? If the answer is going to lead you to having to do something that you don't want to do, don't want to confront. So big examples: if you are in a toxic relationship, you've got an inkling you're in a toxic relationship, but you're not prepared to leave the toxic relationship, then don't ask. Don't put that out there, because once you put it out there, you will start moving towards it. And if you're not actively moving towards it from a place of love, it will just fucking blow up in your face. Like, it will get progressively worse until the outcome you need occurs. So just don't ask, right? Do not venture down the lanes that you're not prepared to deal with yet. So if you're not actually prepared to deal with the potential fallout of understanding why and how, and really importantly, your own role in the shit that happened, and people always say, well, that's an evil thing to say. I experienced sexual abuse as a child, um, different times from different individuals. I was involved. I was in the room. I didn't go to my parents. I made lots of bad decisions afterwards out of shame. Like other children and other people I know who I have done therapy with made different decisions. One of my ex-clients was abused at 9 by their uncle. They went straight to their parents, which then resulted in their uncle going to prison, and this person fucking put their on the witness stand at age 9, really brave, put them in prison, right? So I was not a victim of anybody, right? I was an individual in a situation. I made a decision, they made a decision, right? I could have made a different decision. I could have bit the people. I could have grabbed bits. There's all of these potential different things that could have happened, that I never made those decisions, right? Based on me, based on my personality, based on where I was, based on just everything that was going on, right? So when I say shit like that, it's important that you don't put yourself as a victim or a survivor. You're not a victim or a survivor. You're just a human who had an experience. I've had lots of good experiences. I've had some not so great experiences. They're both experiences. They both help shape me into who I am. If I say I'm a victim, that means I'm not in control of my own decisions, which means I'm not in control of my success, which means I'm not in control of my healing, which means, right? So if you're not prepared to open up to your part in any of the negative experiences, then definitely don't get fucking counseling. Because a good counselor will force you to see the reality of the situation. It was just a fucking experience. If somebody's walking down an alley and they get, raped, are they a victim? Or could they have just not walked down the alley? Right? They made a decision. Could they grab something? Could they shout? Could they scream? Like this, and it's not a blame thing, by the way. Before I get all the bitch, it's unless you are prepared to look at your life objectively, don't get counseling, right? So this is what we're doing. We're playing what is the potential failures, right? So with counseling specifically, if you're not prepared to look at your life objectively and understand your own part in your own life and take responsibility for that and own that, then counseling will fail, because you will refuse to do the things that you need to do. Why else will counseling fail? So we said, there's 3 reasons. I mean, you've got a shit therapist, or it's just the wrong modality. It's not what you need. Then it won't work. So either you've got the wrong modality, the therapist that you just don't gel with, or a really shit one, or one who's like hyper focused on all the things that happened, and pushing you, re-traumatizing you. That's really not helpful either. And forcing you to relive it, forcing you to become the victim, forcing you to be subjected, re-traumatizing you, putting you back in that position, not so that you can then objectively look at anything and identify your part, because you were there. You were there. That's what counselling, and they don't do. The 95% of counsellors don't do this. You just re-traumatize you, and then wonder why you're getting fucking worse, or you're still on the books 30 years later. So wrong therapy, wrong therapist, you're not ready. Those 3 reasons. If you're going for therapy and you decide on counselling, that's why counselling won't work, right? So if you do that properly, you then may be like, okay, so what if it's the wrong therapist? Okay, that's fine. I will interview lots of different therapists. I will find one who, after like 20 minutes, I'm thinking, actually, I don't mind talking to this person. I feel like I can open up to this person. Because if you can't open up to them, you ain't going to get anything resolved. Am I ready? What happens if I'm not ready? Well, maybe I defer for 6 months. Maybe I just do something like BetterHelp first. Maybe I go and build my emotional resilience first before I start getting somebody to dive into the deep, dark shit that's inside my mind. I mean, I highly recommend that, but hey, it's just... you're not me, which is why I don't do any kind of deep, dark, meaningful shit until we get to kind of week 5 and 6, after I've already built your emotional resilience up and given you loads of tools to pull yourself out of that shit, like in minutes, because like, I don't want my clients to end up dead, or in a catatonic state, or inside, I was going to say Shelton, but most of you don't know what that is. That's like the secure unit around in Shrewsbury, or Redwoods. It's Shelton or Redwoods. I don't know which one's the old name, new name. Okay, so maybe I'm not ready. So maybe I do resilience building things. Maybe I just kind of have conversations with friends first. Maybe I kind of have a conversation with AI, and I don't recommend that either, but maybe you do. Right? Maybe I go to a group first rather than going intensive one-on-one. Maybe I just kind of like join a support group where these conversations are potentially happening, but nobody's diving in deep. So there maybe these other things I can do first until I know I'm ready to dive into the real dark depths of what's going on in my mind. And maybe it's not the right modality. So I go and it's just fucking shit because I like the person, I'm ready to do the things, but I actually don't have the tools that I need. So, okay, well, actually, what I'm also going to do is maybe I'm going to create a mind map. I love a good mind map. And I'm going to kind of like put on all the different types of therapeutic models that I can find. And you can ask an AI for this, like list out the top 20 therapeutic models that may help with X, Y, Z. And then tell me one at a time, when would I use this? Why would I want this? Why would this work? Why might it failed? Maybe I'm gonna kind of so imagine now, rather than just being unwell and going, oh, I need counseling because I've heard about that, you then identify the 3 reasons, and those are the 3 reasons why any therapy fails, by the way. So you don't even need to go look. I've done it for you. But then you're looking at why it might fail, and then safeguarding against it rather than why it might fail and not taking action. 2 completely different things. So actionable steps. Assign probabilities, not absolute. So, right, what's the percentage chance this works? And FYI, if you do 80% of your goals, you will still succeed. So that's a cool statistic for you. And this whole 80-20 rule, right? If you 80% of your diet is good, you'll lose the weight. 80% of the exercise you do is 20% of the exercise you do gives you 80% of the results. 20% of your diet gives you 80% of your weight loss goals. 20% of it's crazy, but yeah, so 80% of hitting your goals means they succeed, and 20% of what you do will feed into the 80%. Why 80? Because we've got the 10% outliers, right? If you've never understood why, so you've got like no action, ultimate fucking on fire days. You're like, this is the shit that happens in the middle. Okay, so run regular pre-mortems and post-mortems. Like, do both. on your choices. Like, force yourself to list 10 ways it fails. Really simply, 10 reasons it might fail, and you can flesh an AI. You can use the AI for that. I've got this idea. Give me 10 reasons. Play devil's advocate. Give me 10 reasons. 10 reasons why it might fail. And the AI will kind of like trawl the internet for past failures. Like, look at the history books. Build opportunity, create strategies, and strategies with momentum, right? So you want to make sure that actually a little bit of work will see big wins, and keep the momentum going for the kind of hard stuff that's coming. So cultivate anti-fragility daily. So such as intermittent fasting, cold showers, varied workouts, and we've kind of spoke about all of those things. Professional, diversify your skills. Ask an AI, like, I can do these things. What do my skills mean I can also do on the side? If I have one job and maybe I'm struggling financially, why don't you just like throw all that into an AI and be like, okay, this is what I do. This is what I do on a daily basis, and take the time to really kind of flesh it out, give examples, and then say, okay, so what could I do? Maybe part-time, 4 hours a week, that is going to give me the extra amount of money that I need. And actually, you can also then kind of put like, this is my budget. This is the money I earn. This is what I spend it on. Can you maybe save me this money so you don't have to go and do the 4 hours a week, right? That kind of brainstorming is useful. And then make sure you ask, okay, so what happens if I fail, if it doesn't work out, if I don't get the job? What else am I going to do? Give me 10 reasons why this plan's going to fail, so that you can build in success. So view volatility as fuel, get stronger from setbacks. The ultimate goal is to make fewer bad decisions, not by predicting better, but by positioning yourself to gain from the unknown. Fewer regrets, more asymmetric wins, turning life's mayhem into your edge. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this very predictive analytic heavy show. But hopefully you've now seen how you can use it both to kind of track the narrative, see what's going on. Always start from the 95% of the population kiboshed. And that was supposed to happen this year. So they're running a little bit late for some reason. Or we think they're running late, and we're just not being shown it. We've got all of those different things like nuclear, World War III, economic crashes, earthquakes, aliens are coming. They've been talking about the aliens again. Pandemics, all of those things together is how they're going to achieve it. Start from there, work your way backwards. Look, just take a beat, like take a breath, take a couple of breaths and be like, okay, they know me. What I am being shown is designed to swing me one way or the other. Just take a breath and ask. Like, if you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel confident enough to actually look beyond what you're being shown, ask. Get Grok to play the overlord. Get Grok to play the overlord in what you're being shown on social media, on the news, the narratives that are being shaped, and get Grok to play the overlord in your own life, right? And again, it doesn't have to be Grok. It can be any of them. If you do it enough, you'll be able to do it on your own, right? So the difference between perhaps you starting out and me is I've spent 20 years trying to understand human behavior. And this is what we're doing. We're predicting what people are going to do, what people are not going to do, what the reality is. Did this really happen? Did it not really happen? And I also spent sorted my shitty life out. Okay, without therapy, you don't need therapy. You can sort yourself out, and you can join the Happiness Hacks Lab if you want to. If you want like tools and tips and shit, and all the things that I used, and the science behind why. So I fixed myself, went to university to learn why, and now I'm teaching everybody else. And you can go free for 7 days. So you can literally get all the information you need, and then you never have to pay a penny if that's what you choose to do. If you happen to be strapped for cash right now, that's fine. Like, I get it. I've been in those positions. But I've also spent 11 years working with people one-to-one who have been like the lowest of the low, multiple suicide attempts, right? And if you can support somebody back from like absolute shit tip of darkness, it's really easy because I see them spinning their own bullshit. It's really easy for me to see when bullshit's being spun. So as my own business owner, I had to learn sales and marketing as well. And it was really obvious. This is just fucking psychology. This is human psychology. Like, you're using psychology to manipulate people to buy something or do something, whereas I use psychology to help people out of the manipulation. Right. So it comes naturally to me because I've spent 2 decades learning it. You don't need to spend 2 decades learning it. You don't need to go to university. You don't need to become a psychologist. Use AI to help you. And give Grok a prompt, right? Ask whichever AI it is. If I want you to help me, like, theoretical, if I want you to help me, we're going to unpick some narratives. I want you to imagine you're overlord, but I want you to give me a prompt that is going to enable you to apply predictive analytics for every kind of conversation we're going forward. I want you to stress test it, not just look at passes, but also look at failure. I want you to deconstruct the narrative. What will happen if they succeed? What will happen if they fail? Like, do that as one project, right? Do another project. I want you to help me sort the fucking shit out on in my life, right? This is the things I want to achieve. Please tell me predictive and like pretend you are a master human behavior understander. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Just but use it as it's a tool. It can be a really helpful tool. So thank you very much for joining me. I really look forward to seeing you next week where we kind of dive into time. It's going to be fun, I promise you. We're going back in time a little bit. Enjoy yourselves over the next 7 days. Have a wonderful Hanukkah. Merry Christmas for those of you if you're kind of knocking around next week. Enjoy life, enjoy family. You don't need anybody else to help you dig out a hole out of your own hole. You can absolutely do it on your own. But if you want a bit of help, like happiness hacks up. See you soon. Bye for now.